Yeah.
There's that. Hi, everybody. We're going to do the scene switch when I find the right thing, because I'm a pro streamer. There we go. There we go. Hi, everybody. First episode of Phantoma Dreams, the new rebranded podcast. With me is ItsNostalgicMagic, or, Beautiful Man, as his friends call him. How about you give us the whole spiel, introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are.
Of course. Well, first of all, for everybody watching, Angelus, you're an incredible human being. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really appreciative of this opportunity, and you always, your hats are always wonderful. So hi everybody, I am Jeremy, also known as Nostalgic. I am not privy to hiding my real name because I always believe that I am my brand and my brand is me. I am the executive producer and showrunner of It's Nostalgic Magic. It is a brand on a quest for discovering one thing. It is for whenever you remember why. I am on a journey to finding out why we're nostalgic for the things we're nostalgic for. And I'm not just limited to gaming. I also do the mundane. I do everything. I'm kind of lost for my formal pitch at the moment because Angelus and I were having just like a fun little conversation. And I kind of like this freewheeling thing, it's just he and I, and this is a wonderful opportunity to just kind of kick back and see what everybody wants to ask and what we're going to talk about. It's going to be great. So anyway, let me just get back to the brand very quickly. So I created It's Nostalgic Magic as a means to connect to all different kinds of generations of people, from everyone in the silent era all the way through Gen Z, and now even with my family and my youngest son, my only son, my young son, who is 4.5, is now Gen Alpha. So I'm going to be able to discover something very interesting, and something that I've been figuring out lately is that nostalgia, people try to make it a niche, but it's not a niche, it's a feeling. And so I want to get to the core of the feeling of why. We always hear this whole Simon Sinek thing of asking, find your why. What is your why? And so I thought that was a really great basis for this type of entertainment. I'm a trained actor, performer, very heavily trained dancer. I have a degree in musical theater from the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I also had a degree in acting, or drama, if you will, a high school diploma, a specialized high school diploma from LaGuardia High School. And if you don't know the name of that school, if I tell you that the movie Fame, that high school that the movie Fame was based on, that was my high school. So it's a very prestigious building. A lot of great people have come from it. So I have a lot of training under my belt to be able to convey and have a means of conveyance for this type of branding. It's a lot of fun to talk to all different kinds of people. And I feel that the entertainment that I produce kind of coexists with how I've been trained as an actor and as a performer. We try so hard to figure out what is within our soul, and we try to figure out the answer to all of those why questions. So why keep that a secret when I can share that with the world? So on YouTube, it's not just VODs from Twitch, and it's not just podcasts from Twitch or anything. Everything is separate. YouTube is all episodic television. I haven't made a YouTube episode in about a year because I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the platform. But there's about 8 episodes at the ready for anybody to go ahead, watch, and enjoy. Here on Twitch, of course, I do my gaming, but I've also become a bit of a variety streamer. I've done some free tap classes, like tap as in tap dancing. I also plan on doing a cooking stream pretty soon as part of a thank you for my friend Becca EA, who I want to shout out, her and her partner El Cactus. They have been great supporters of mine, and they are actually the first people who I met from Twitch in real life. I went down to Orlando, Florida to go to Disney World for a week, and we just kind of set aside 2 hours and got the opportunity to just talk shop and talk about everything and nothing. And I'm really appreciative to the two of them for all their support. And my podcast. My podcast can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google, all through Anchor.fm. And my podcast is, of course, as with all things of It's Nostalgic Magic being a brand, it's separate. So I get to talk about movies and genres of things that can't really be made into a YouTube video because I just can't pay for the licensing for some clips and stuff. So I usually reserve my podcast for some of that stuff. I've been able to talk to family members, IRL friends, and I've been able to talk to a lot of different and wonderful entertainers on Twitch and on the internet. I've been able to speak to Jarl Maxi, Bawa, Alex Noramaki, Northwolf 911, and coming this Sunday, and this is a sneak preview for everybody who is wondering, 2 podcasts are going to be coming out. One is a solo adventure, just me, and then the one following that is going to be with another one of our friends and supporters, Norman Bates Jr., Eli. They are a really good performer, and they are into all things retro and horrific, so it's going to be all about horror nostalgia, because I am not a fan of horror. I am a really big crybaby. I cannot watch that stuff, so I pride myself on using It's Nostalgic Magic as my personal journey to figuring out why people are nostalgic for other things. One of my podcasts that I had on is actually with one of my brothers, one of my best friends, his fiance, soon-to-be wife. We talked about SpongeBob SquarePants and its nostalgic appeal. So I wanted to use that as kind of like a catalyst to see if I could actually like talk about something that I know nothing about and see why people are nostalgic for it, and see if I can also catch that bug. So basically, It's Nostalgic Magic is a brand for whenever you remember why. And that's just a little bit about the brand. And then me, I grew up in Queens, New York. Shout out to Queens, shout out New York. I have since moved not too far, but I've been able to use during the pandemic the time to kind of do a lot of the groundwork for all of the stuff It's Nostalgic Magic has to bring to everybody. So I've been able to meet beautiful people like Angelus here, which I'm so thankful for. We've been able to do a lot of different things together, and it's just going to be a fun evening. I'm really excited, and I pride myself on being a family-friendly brand, but tonight I had to break out a little glass of wine because I feel like this is that kind of a situation, especially with a gentleman as handsome as yourself.
Well, I certainly try. I was thinking, actually, prior to this, yesterday, you immediately leapt to mind because we have a scented candle that's apple pie. It's supposed to be the scent of apple pie. And we've been baking. It was Canadian Thanksgiving this week. And just as the candle was lit and I just came downstairs, caught that scent, and immediately I flashed back to when I was a kid, baking pies with my grandmother. And it's that there's a lot of nostalgia when it comes to cooking and smells, which is why I think a cooking stream makes a lot of sense for you in the brand, because we can tie so many memories to things that we pick up on smell and sound and smell, but especially smell. There's a lot of things that, like walking outside now, the smell of fall. Yes, it's rotting leaves and rain, whatever it is, but it's that smell, that you're getting ready for school and you're getting up early in the morning, going out to the bus, you smell the crushed leaves and the freshly mown grass, and it's that memory of childhood, Halloween's coming.
Yeah. It's right? So funny. The first YouTube video that I made with the brand was all about the sense of smell around the holiday season.
That makes sense.
So funny you mentioned that. But yes,
it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and the basis of nostalgia is euphoric recall. So when you have that kind of whiff of whatever it is, it immediately brings you back to the when, the where. But the why is the question. Why do I go back there? Why am I suddenly transported? We already know the what and the when and the where. We already know that, but finding that why, that's what I want to get to. And that's what we as performers try to establish through character, try to establish through a means of conveying different characters to an audience and telling a story. So there's so many stories to be told when we have those euphoric recalls. I have a slew of different kinds of stories like that, and it's just so funny you mentioned that, and that being the first thing that I put on YouTube.
Just a timely thing. But, as far as why goes, I know exactly why, because that was one of the happiest times in my childhood, was baking with my grandmother. Because for several years when I was very young, she was the center of my universe. So, and everything sprouted from that. She also taught me piano, which I've now forgotten because it's been too many years. But she's the one who pushed me to pursue writing, and why I've been writing in many different forms, many different genres since I was a kid, was because of her. And it's the same with writers. We have to anchor our stories and how we present situations, not just by being descriptive of the dialogue the characters might share, but you have to be able to paint the scene. And that includes adding things like written cues to establish a visual sense and a sense of smell and a sense of placement, so that when you're visualizing the scene you're reading, you actually can anchor it with your own experiences. Makes it much more easier to visualize. And that includes a lot of nostalgia.
Yes. What kind of writing do you do?
Right now it's mostly been reviews and stuff, but I've been I have a children's book on the go at the moment, and I've got some other novels that I've kind of put off to the side. So I've done sci-fi, fantasy. I've done a lot of in-character role-playing years when I was younger, when the internet was still fresh and new. We were in chat rooms role-playing characters. Did a lot of that, and it all evolved from there. So, and I just like telling stories, and which is what has evolved into a lot of what I do on Twitch. Is while I'm playing games, I'm talking about everything else but the game with chat, because there's always stories to tell based on either the game and things that shows, or things that come up in chat. It's all about telling stories and connecting experiences.
Yeah, I was watching The Storyteller from Jim Henson just the other day, and I saw a very young Sean Bean in one of the episodes, which kind of caught my eye. But yeah, there are all of these stories from early Germanic folk tales or Grecian folk tales, and literally the best place held by the fire is for the storyteller. And we have so many stories to tell. That's so cool, though, that you've written a children's book and you have novels. See, for me, YouTube, actually, I have to write a script for YouTube. And that's why a lot of people try to pump out content so quickly. And I don't want to pump it out as quick. I want it to last. I want it to have lasting impacts. That's why I understand that my entertainment is going to be subjective by default. So I don't want it to be objective for making, stuff just kind of on the fly. A lot of people have been doing this for years and are able to have all of their recording equipment ready, are able to edit very quickly, or have a small team of people who they can be like, okay, we have, like, just to call a spade, the new Smash Brothers Direct just happened. And all of a sudden you get thousands of people uploading within half an hour to 40 minutes. They have like 2 or 3 people at the ready to record their reaction, take that video footage and put it everywhere. But then it's done. It's over. It's like, I don't really need to go back to that. You're just, it's not that I don't appreciate the hard work. It's just that I don't feel like that's what I need to do. Right. So that's why when it comes to YouTube, I feel like writing a script, having that all fleshed out, and having that as my, say, storyboard, that helps me to edit and put everything in order, and you can still watch it. Like, it's not stuck in a time capsule. I kind of want to give it its own timeless factor, because nostalgia is timeless in its own special personal way. But there's a subject that I've been researching for the podcast that I'm doing, which is actually going to be all about the Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson. So I don't want to give the store away, but there is a subject that I wanted to talk about in that podcast called collectivism. And collectivism is basically a societal way of remembering things fondly for stuff that either happened or stuff we've never known, which is also called anemoia, nostalgia for a time you've never known. So I've been exploring all of this, and people are wondering like where the heck I am through all of this. Like, where's your entertainment? Where's all the stuff you promised us? And even my Discord is asking like, hey, Nostalgic, like, are you okay? And yes, I'm fine. Jeremy is fine. I'm doing a lot of things. My real life stuff has kind of went like that on me, and I just had a lot of things pop up very, very quickly. So that's why my subathon had to be canceled, which I was kind of bummed about because I really wanted to do it. But and my October month of Nostalgictober had to be, kind of dwindled a little bit because I'm working now. It wasn't like last year when I'm home because the world is sick and and I could just like say, okay, here's the schedule that to do. Now it's a whole other slew of different things going on. But anyway, back to macro. Yes, I believe that writing is the purest form of conveying expression through a means of either telling it out loud, telling it through character, or having something concrete. Like the tablets. We find these Egyptian tablets or these clay tablets from Africa, and they tell these beautiful stories, and we can't even read them, but we're trying to decipher them because we want to know what kind of stories these people were telling. Like it's like cave stuff. It's written on the walls and all that junk. Like, writing is really one of the purest forms of artistic expression, and to me, writing is a lot more difficult than I had made it out to be. So when I was doing YouTube, I was like, wow, well, I have it all here. Now I just have to transfer it. And I believe that writers get trained so that they don't lose what they want to convey in the execution. And I think that's true with all things. I think we go through our training and we have these world-class writers or athletes or performers because they have tapped into the ability of not losing what they want to convey in the execution.
And it like, especially with writing, it comes down to refinement, right? Like, as even with game design, it's all iterative, right? They do iterations of levels. It's the same with writing. I'll take a basic scene. I know what I want to have happen. Usually, sometimes, maybe. It depends. The characters can be a little stubborn, but I have a basic idea of what I'm going for, and then I will write it out, and then I will read it over, and I will fine-tune it because something isn't quite sitting right, or a character's position in that moment in time isn't quite right and it needs to adapt. So it's not changing the scene, it's refining it to give it the presence that it needs to have. And that's something that you don't see in a lot of content, especially YouTube. Like, a lot of it is for the on-demand generation. It's immediate, it has to be done, it has to be uploaded, it has to be right away. Partly because, yes, they're chasing those views, but it's partly because that's the nature of that business. For a lot of YouTubers and even a lot of streamers, it's that need to get it immediately done to get the attention, but also because once that moment is gone, it's gone. And there's no getting it back. While other people, like yourself, you want that sense of permanence so that your content will be able to be referred back to, or come back to explore it again without it losing its meaning and its position, but it still has relevance even 5 or 10 years later because it encapsulates nostalgia for a moment based on the moment that you're doing it at that time. At least that's the way I'm understanding it.
You are spot on, actually. I want to be able to convey a means of remembrance and a means of euphoric recall so that it can be revisited, because that's what it's all about. It's all about revisiting. So the ability for my audience, I guess, to revisit that is one of the basic foundations of why the brand is in place. So I take pride in taking my time and not having to rush to get things out, and actually that's what Twitch is for. I feel like Twitch is for, we're gonna watch this reaction together and we're gonna gonna do it together, instead of having a full video of rumors and speculations afterwards. I'd rather speak with people live, which is why I like this platform. This platform is all about that kind of interaction. I do pride myself, I've been saying that a lot tonight, I'm finding. I do pride myself on my Twitch channel also being passive entertainment, so people don't have to interact. So they're getting their entertainment's worth regardless. So I am not one to just remain silent. So I will consistently try to bring about good entertainment for people. And I feel that, and I've said this before on a couple of other podcasts or what have you. I feel like the words content creation or content creator was created as a means of separating internet from film, television, and radio.
Yes.
Like Union. And I want to try and bridge that gap now. I think we have come to the point now in entertainment where we need to stop using that as the divider. So when you hear someone say like they're an influencer, well, yeah, sure, you can influence on ABC, but honestly, if you're entertaining me, then you're an entertainer.
Yes.
Whether it be with training or not can be debated. I could have that debate all night long because I am one of those people who has been trained. So I do have a very finite view of what constitutes you earning all of the accolades and you not earning all the accolades. Everything is either based on luck or skill. I could have that conversation all night, but regardless, the back to macro, the whole idea of having something that's going to be able to be revisited is very important to me. Suddenly Matt actually just asked me a question, and everybody in chat, honestly, if you have any questions, this is please ask away.
This is the time, this is the place.
Yeah, I would love to answer any questions that you all have. What kind of training have I had? Okay, so suddenly Matt, thank you for asking. That's a good question. So the training I've had, I've been trained as a dancer since the age of 4. I've been able to have wonderful opportunities to be trained in all different styles of dance, everything from tap dancing, which I still do and teach to today. It is my #1 favorite thing in the world to do. Tap dancing is how I might be able to be personally defined. But I've also been trained in jazz dance. I am self-taught hip hop and then finally went to classes, lyrical and contemporary, modern dance, ballet. I've done competition dance. And then when I got into high school is when I began my acting training. And after I went through my acting training at the Fame School, the movie Fame, in case for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning of the podcast this evening, the high school that I went to is the prestigious High School of Performing Arts, also known as LaGuardia High School or LaGuardia Arts. I went for acting, so I had my dancing and acting training at the same time. So I kind of had the foresight to get the training in both instead of just saying, oh, I'm just going to go to high school for dance because I already know how to do that. I would rather get training basically for free in something different so that I can, kind of up the skills a little bit. And then I went to get my BFA in musical theater. So I got formal singing training from University of the Arts in Philadelphia. So it is a lot of training, but I am so thankful and I'm so grateful for having that training because it guaranteed me a very different way of viewing the world through a very artistic lens, through a very different kind of perspective. I feel like my perspective of the universe has been utterly enhanced by the training that I received because I was able to meet so many different types of people, learn about different kinds of cultures. I wasn't tunnel viewed. I wasn't bogged down. I wasn't told to repress. I had very supportive parents. It was a tough upbringing. They were very strict with me. But I think that over time that has mended. But their unwavering support of, I always say my parents worked too hard for me not to be great. So for me to have that kind of training through their benefit has exponentially enlightened me in a way that I can't really, it's very difficult to describe. But yeah, all of that training I am so grateful for. It has literally given me a different way of viewing the world and being able to see a wider range of things, and also to be able to continue to learn and grow.
Mhm.
That's what I feel a lot of times people get very stagnant and they get very comfortable and they get very complacent. And the moment you get into that sense of complacency is when you cease to grow and you get stuck in your ways. Which is also why with the brand, I'm trying to figure out a lot of different things, not just pop culture, just all
Mhm.
different kinds of things. There's this mundane nostalgia where it's like, look at the angle of the sun at 2:37 in the afternoon. Why am I being transported back to fourth grade walking home like from
Yep.
school? Like those kinds of things. And I feel like all of that training gives me that perspective. And I'm always fascinated by it. So that was actually a very good question. Thank you, Matt.
Well, I know what I know what Matt's thinking, and it's
Mhm.
something that I was going to bring up at some point. Wasn't necessarily going to do it on the podcast because it's a passion project that Matt and I have discussed before. But
Okay.
I was waiting for him to arrive so that he could be in place because we have a plan, and I was going to invite you to be part of it at some point. This is down the line. We are considering doing a live casted segmented episodic radio play on Twitch.
Ooh. Oh, I
Is
love
something
that.
that we are considering, that we've kicked the idea around the last year. So
Okay.
it's going
Well,
to be,
I have my
like
union.
old
I have
time
my union
radio,
card in voiceover. So
right? So
yeah. So I'm all for that. Wow, that's awesome. That's really
so
cool.
that's one of the things that I always have projects cooking in the background, whether it's
Yeah.
books I'm working on or games that I'm playing with designing. And yes, Matt, it's going to be good.
It's gonna be
But
good.
I like when I'm playing video games off stream. Sometimes
Mhm.
I'll have old time radio on, so I'm listening to the old sci-fi radio dramas or the detective stories from the
That's what I
30s,
used to do
40s,
in
50s,
college. I used to,
right?
on iTunes when they used to have the radio stations. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember this?
Yeah,
So I would always pull up the mystery radio station. I would
yeah.
always have that on constantly. Oh my gosh, that's so great to hear that. I thought it was the only
So
one.
that's where that idea came from because
I miss that
Matt and I are
station.
both a pair of writers.
Okay.
So, and noir and the old genres, the detective stories and the sci-fi, one of we'll go back to one of my story times when I was a kid. Well, I say kid, I was like 15, 14, 15. My friend's house, we were laying in the back of his friend's truck listening to War of the Worlds, the original radio broadcast,
Yeah.
and just listening to that bright open sky above us, no lights out in the country, and it's just the way stories were conveyed then. Something's been lost to an extent
Hmm.
on how storytelling has evolved, probably because of that instant gratification angle that a lot of things are going for. You don't see
I
many
also,
slow burn stories anymore.
yeah, I see. That actually, that's so funny you mentioned slow burn stories. So I feel like with our consumption of media and the way that we consume media now, with having a device in our hands at all
Hmm.
times and having a screen, our intuition for imagination is being depleted.
Mm.
So it's like watching my son create different stories, but he's not creating different stories from original ideas in his head. He's creating stories from characters and stories that he has seen before and
Mm.
is able to compile them and make his own. But no idea is original. But
Yeah.
he's not able to just say, okay, today I'm going to create a character, I don't know, named Babadoo, and Babadoo is going to go to, Cloud Cuckoo Land and be able to meet this wizard called Methuselah, my oldest friend. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's like one of those things where he doesn't have that kind of storytelling capacity curiosity because he is being fed entertainment and stories through different medium. So getting back to slow burn, that's why I don't know if there are any wrestling fans out there, but I had the opportunity to go to WrestleMania 30, what is it, 35, I believe, over in at MetLife Stadium back in 2019, pre-pandemic. So I was able to go to that, and the longest and slowest match of the night was Triple H versus Batista, Batista's final match. And we all know Batista as Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. But Triple H loves doing those long, drawn out matches, those long, drawn out old school storytelling. And the audience lost it after 20 minutes. The match was 45 minutes. And even I was kind of like, and I can last a long time. And I was like, oh man, why did he pull the old school card? Like, don't do it during Mania. And that just kind of alluded to your point. It's very difficult to keep an audience enticed for longer than a specific period of time. And Vine was actually one of the first catalysts of having that shortened even further, because we had YouTube, and YouTube at the time was like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 7 minutes even, and people would kind of sit through those, but they would definitely sit through the 3 minutes. But now when people go to YouTube, they want to just have something running in the background. You hear the joke going around nowadays that you put on a television show on like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, but you're also on TikTok at the same time because you want to have something running in the background. But you're still half paying attention. So it's very difficult to convey compelling stories in an atmosphere where we have 3 screens going at one time, and our audience is able to somehow cohesively gather all of that information and funnel it. So enticing the audience might be the hardest part of all of it. Not necessarily what stories we're telling, because we've already heard a lot of different stories. I want to hear stories that are from I feel personally attacked as I look. I want to hear stories involving like Black is Beautiful. You know what I mean? Like I want to hear those kinds of stories. I want to hear stories that don't always involve like the drama at the end. Like it always goes down to what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're epitomizing the drama. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to have something that's gonna like carry me forward. And a lot of movies that I've seen lately, Hollywood's a different town now anyway, but a lot of stories that I've seen are like one and done. Like I don't like a lot of the media being put out there is not like, oh, I have to own that movie. I need to go out and buy a carbon copy, Blu-ray or digital copy, like to own so I could watch it anywhere. I don't see a lot of people doing that anymore. Like there are movies that I will watch over and over and over just because they're fun. There's not really any like social consciousness behind it. There's no search for inclusion. There's no search for world peace. There's no search for diversity. There's no search for that. A really good example of that is a movie like Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. Which Indiana Jones, like what was it? I think Family Guy completely alluded to the fact. Not Family Guy. I forget which show it was, but somebody was like, Indiana Jones had no reason to be there. Like he didn't have to be there because they would have opened the Ark and everybody would have died anyway. But that's beside the point. Still, it's a fun movie to watch, which means that someone went in, dissected it like nowadays and said, like he didn't need to be there. But people have already thought about that. It's just that now that we think of it that way, everybody's like, oh, well, then that movie is just trash. I'm not going to watch it ever because I already know this fact. But no, you're missing the whole point to why the
Yeah.
movie was made. The movie was made to be fun. The movie was made to be watched over and over. The movie was
Yeah.
made for you to put on and be like, I want to enjoy watching these great action sequences again because look how damn well they've been made. Back to the Future, another great example. People are like, I'm not going to watch Back to the Future anymore. And by people, I mean maybe people younger than us, or maybe people who are more aware of like let's say Endgame and Avengers Endgame, you know, like time travel in movies is now going to be a very different thing. So it's going to be much more difficult for those types of audiences to go back and watch something like Back to the Future where it has something linear in a sense. So watching a movie like Back to the Future, you watch the movie because it's fun.
Yes.
Like it's a very well written movie. It was very well thought out. And it and does it stand the test of time? Pun double entendre intended. Yes, I believe that it does have the capacity to still be watched nearly 40 years later, just because it's a fun movie.
Yes.
So by people we mean Dan kids and their TikToks and their hippity hops. I'm actually a hip hop artist too. I failed to mention that. I've actually put out an album that's out on SoundCloud. But yeah, and even with music too. The idea of musical storytelling, I feel, is a lot more personal. You know, you watch a movie with friends. You can watch a movie by yourself, but you watch a movie with friends. You know, you watch a television show with your family. But I feel like music is all in here. It's in the headphones, and it's very personal and it's very introspective. Musical storytelling has come a long way. And I think that whatever the big record companies are pumping out right now is kind of like for TikTok and just kind of the hoopla of it all.
Yeah.
But if you really dig deep, you can find a lot of great storytellers in music. Like there's a guy that I worked with in New York called, his band is called Man Made Hills. He and his bassist I've been able to work with. And Man Made Hills, he has 2 albums out on Apple Music or Spotify, I guess. And he's telling these really great like stories, and they have their own poetic justice to it. But you have to dig deep. But to those who dig deep, reap the rewards, and they reap the benefits of that. I don't remember what the original point I was trying to make, though. I guess that's our ADHD talking. But oh, Matt, here we go. Thank you for interjecting. I feel like a lot of this discussion really depends on the era you grew up with. There's a lot of rediscovery of older storytelling tools, but we've gotten to this point where the barrier of entry is low enough that you can find every kind if you dig enough. Oh yeah, I mean we have like that's the beauty of the internet. The beauty of the internet, if put in the hands of the correct kind of people, can be a tool for good. It can be a tool for exploration. Can be a tool for asking the smart questions. You know, if it's given to people who use it for their own personal rhetoric, I guess, then you're not using the tool, I guess, as intended. You know, these tools were created. The internet tool was created so that, of course, we could do, you know, banking online, or we can do an exchange of, you know, ideas. But that exchange of ideas, we're doing it right now. So we're using the platform as intended. But for those who try to use the platform as a means of getting something personally out of it for, I don't know if the word clout is the correct term. But if I feel
these
like
days clout would be accurate for some. Yeah. Well, clout or personal profit.
Yeah,
or personal advancement.
Everybody needs to make money.
Well, yes,
you know, but I think it comes down to how much you're willing to support that. If the support's not there, it's hi, how are you? Hello.
One of the kids.
No, it's all good.
Being
it's all
nosy.
Good. I'm so humbled that they've said hello. Thank you. Where was I? Yes. So the internet is a tool, and you have to use the tool effectively. So my goal, I guess, now as a father is to be able to teach my child how to use the internet effectively. Like, yes, we get our entertainment from the internet, but it can also be used to teach you things. And so during the pandemic, when he was home from school, I was like, okay, so we're gonna play this Sesame Street game that your teacher gave us, and we're really gonna like try and figure out like what's going on here, you know? And so why does this happen? Why does this happen? Why does this happen? You know, so we're literally starting to ask him the why questions. You know, like why do you put your shoes on? They're very basic questions so that my feet don't get hurt. Great. That kind of logic isn't that kind of basic logic isn't necessarily going to be taught to them.
Right.
I feel like we need to find the tools or be able to use our means of communication to our children of teaching them those basics. And I feel like those whole like, and I laugh at some of them because they are pretty funny, but it is scary. Those how to basic videos where they start making like scrambled eggs and like the house burns down, you know, like it's one of those extremes. But there's a truth to that. There's a lot of people who don't know how to do these very basic skills because when the kids get home from school, the sitters, for the most part, will just put the television on and just be like, okay, watch TV. I have other things to do, but they're 2 rooms over in the kitchen scrolling on TikTok.
Yeah.
Just making sure nobody comes into the house. You know, like I have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like basics. This is something that I've discussed with people for years, and I grew up both in Canada and in America. My junior high years, I lived in Sugar Land, Texas. So I've had the privilege of the Canadian and the American education system. And if you took privilege to mean what you thought it meant, that's not what I meant.
Right.
One of the things like at home, kids need to be taught basic life skills, but they should also be taught in school because there are lots of parents who don't have the ability to teach those things, either because they don't know them themselves, or especially with like single parents, they're working, they don't have the time or the ability to teach them. And a lot of things that are taught in school a lot of it is theoretical, abstract content that doesn't really have an anchor for kids in their lives. That's why a lot of them disengage from school, because they don't have a way to connect to it. So they have no interest in learning it because they think, like we did, when am I ever going to use this? When am I ever going to use algebra? Right? They have nothing to relate to it, right? But if you're teaching things like, you can teach history while teaching cooking. You can teach geography while teaching cooking. You can teach basic life skills while tying it to those things.
With math, the greatest math class I ever had was the final math class I ever had. It was in college, and it was called Why Math. And it basically taught you percentages and how to measure things around the house, how to do a tip, how to balance your checkbook. Like daily, everyday math. That's the kind of math we need to be teaching in school.
Exactly.
Like, to younger children. We need to teach them sensible math. I feel like that algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calc, pre-cal, quantum mechanics, all of that should be taught on a need to want to know basis.
Yes.
You know, we can't standardize. We can only standardize math so much if that's what the person wants to do with their life. You know, I think that we have, I said it today. I was like, grades. That is so Industrial Revolution. Why do we need grades? But like, think about it. We've been so stuck in our education system since the Industrial Revolution. Sit in a row, raise your hand, grade A, grade B, you're like a piece of meat. You really are like a piece of meat. And we need to finally, and people are taking initiative on this. People need to move away from that kind of educational system. And there are people at the top who are so stuck, which is why our generation needs to be in charge of many different kinds of things. But again, that's a different conversation. We have now differentiated how the classroom is oriented for the most part. at least from what I gather. And I think that that kind of reshaping of a classroom is a great start because it allows for different kinds of activities in different parts of the room. Like this is an office. This is where I get my work done. That's the kitchen. This is where we get the cooking done. It's not like you're sitting in rows and then, oh, that's the play area. Like it's not going to work like that anymore because that's what I had in first grade. It's not going to work like that. It can't. So, the way that we're orienting things is very conducive to how the mind needs to work with the technology that's presented in front of them. And it's so funny too. A lot of people have brought up to me, "Oh, so you're like a conservative because you talk about nostalgia. You talk about things from the past." And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not. I'm actually a little bit more of a progressive than a lot of people would consider because I use nostalgia as a means to glance back so we can reset forward or focus forward." So, in glancing back, in looking back, we're able to, yes, have that euphoric recall. And the why, finding out the answer to that why, allows us to refocus forward with our efforts as a society, as individuals, and being like, well, I have very fond memories of XYZ, but now how can I take those feelings and grow with them and be able to speak to people with a different kind of conversation or be able to raise my children in the world they're living in now rather than what I was expected to know then. You can't raise your children in the way that you were. You have to raise your children in the world that is presented to them today.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of people miss that part of it because they feel like spare the rod and spoil the child is the way to go nowadays, where people will be like, no, you got to be hard on them. You got to be this. And I'm like, no, you just have to find a means to an end depending on what your situation is. If your situation will allow you to say, hey, yes, we're in a really tight situation. We don't have a lot of money coming in, but I need to teach you that the world right now is working in such a way that you could benefit from. Here are ways that you, an 8-year-old or whatever, will be able to possibly make your money and plant the seed early so that you can give them an opportunity to say, okay, now I get the gears turning. Now it doesn't just have to be, I go to school, I go to work and I die, exploring the world after 65. You know what I mean? Like it's not like that anymore. And our generation, unfortunately, got the brunt end of the stick because our means of gaining income and having the life our parents once had was fleeting decades ago. You know, and we just unfortunately didn't know that. So we're going through life, going through high school, going through college, and being like, okay, once I get out of college, I'm going to land a job and then whatever. But then the housing market crashed and then the banks failed. And where does that leave us? We've had like 3 recessions since, you know what I mean? So it's come back to, yes, we can look fondly back on things like if we find, what their purpose is. And once we find that purpose, okay, how can we take that information and progress it forward? I am a very big fan of people having conversations about great ideas. How can we improve on this? How can we tell different stories with that? And I really enjoy a lot of what you're going to be doing with Matt. I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm pretty excited.
It's one of those things, right? And I've been thinking about this a while. I've mentioned this before on podcasts and just in conversations with friends. We're in the middle of one of those historic events where we're going to have an entire generation of children who, when 20, 30, 40 years from now, they're going to look back with nostalgia to that summer they were home with their parents because of the pandemic. Right? This is going to be the keystone moment in their lives. Their lives were built around. This will be the thing. This will be the time period that a majority of their memories are going to spring from, good or bad. And it's interesting to watch that develop in my own kids and the way that they're going to interact with the world, because one of them's going to get thrown out the window here in a minute. But, the way that they reflect back on the last 2 years and the memories they have, we're going to be talking about it, and they're going to be talking about it for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Just like,
Yeah, my son's a little too young to be able to remember everything. So I have a lot of documentation, so I can go back and, head first through it.
Yeah, head first. She's 16, she'll bounce.
But my journey through the pandemic has been one of it's very tough for me to discuss some of the things that I went through during the pandemic, but it was all for the better because I've come out of it a completely different person, and I've been able to look at how I was pre-pandemic and then post-pandemic. I'm two completely different people, and I'm still growing. I'm still learning from all of it, and I love that. I don't want to make light of the pandemic by any means because hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives. People have lost families. It's just a devastating occurrence. I like to call it a unfortunate fortuitous circumstance. So with that being said, my personal experience through the pandemic has been one of great growth, has been one of great positivity, and I've been able to be at home with my family for 14 months. Like that's, I'm never going to get that time again. Like retirement, forget it. With our generation, that ain't happening. So I was going to soak up as much as I could. And in the beginning, I took it for granted because I thought, oh, I'll just be home for like 3 months and then go back to work, like a lot of us did. But then when I realized that my job was like, we can't bring you back in September, I was like, oh, okay. So I have an open calendar. Like my calendar is open. Let's make this work. So then the brand started to kind of flourish. And I actually had the idea for the brand pre-pandemic. This is not a pandemic idea. I've had this idea on the back burner since college, actually. So then when I had the time to sit up here and be able to like flush out all these ideas and everything, I was then able to go downstairs and be able to be with my family. And it was just wonderful. My wife and I connected on so many different new levels, and we've been able to solidify some things that we want to get out of our relationship and out of our lives together, and what we want for my son and his benefit. I feel like my being here, my weight will tell you different, but I feel like my my purpose has been a little bit more flushed out because through all of my training, I thought I'm going to be this great entertainer. I'm going to go to Hollywood. I'm going to make movies, or I'll be on television, or I'm going to be on Broadway. And that's going to be like the end game, right? Like the goal is to get to 1, 2, 3. But the pandemic taught me that it's not about the end goal. There is a great, and I've brought this up before, there's a great moment in Soul, the Disney Pixar film. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yes, okay. I have kids.
It has become, right, of course, yes. What am I saying? It has become one of my favorite films, for two parts, 2 reasons. The one is where, at closer to the end of the film, where, I forget Jamie Foxx's character's name, Joe. When Joe is talking to one of the Jerrys, and he's like, "Oh yeah, but she hasn't found her purpose yet, or I don't know what their purpose is, or whatever." And they're like, "We don't teach people how to get purposes. Where did you get an idea like that?" And they're like, "Oh, you mentors, your purpose is, you're so basic." That woke me up. That really woke me up, being like, oh, it's not about getting to the end goal. It's not about that. It's and the word journey is tossed around a lot these days, but and even what's her name? She is the editor-in-chief of Vogue, I believe. I forget what her name is. But she hates the word journey. Whenever these models come to her and are like, "Oh, I'm on this journey," so I'll get to that point in a moment. But the idea that we're progressively growing and have to grow as a person means that we need to live every day. We're only given 26,000 days. Some people know how to wear them all out, and I envy them because I don't. But the other part of the film that made me pause the movie and I bawled my eyes out. It's when Joe has his first professional gig with Eudora's band, right?
Yep.
And and the show is done, and he's just kind of like standing there being like, I really thought that this would feel different. And then Eudora just kind of pauses and she tells the story and she goes, I heard this story about a fish. And the fish goes to the other fish and he says, hey, I'm looking for this thing they call the ocean. You ever hear of it? And the older fish turns to this young fish and goes, the ocean? That's what you're in right now. And the younger fish goes, what? No, this is water. What I want is the ocean. And then she gets in the cab and drives away. And it was like, I bawled so hard because all my life I thought that Broadway was the end goal. Getting in the movie was the end goal. Landing a TV series or landing a voiceover like contract was the end goal. But that's not it at all. It's not. It's far beyond that. And people who have been able to grasp that at an earlier point in their life, I feel are the most successful people in the world.
Yes.
Because they didn't stop at the top. They worked even harder at the top. And a lot of people miss that. They see the end result. They see the TikTok fully edited. They see the YouTube video fully edited. They see these Marvel and Star Wars blockbuster pictures, final edit, like ready to go.
Yeah.
But they don't see all of the, they don't see everything that goes on behind it. They don't see all of that. And that woke me up. And I'm like, wow, there is like, there's like, yeah, there's multiple lives. There's a couple of lives actually. And Matt just said it. I've heard that we don't live just one life, that we live like 7 lives. And that's what's kept me going. And there are no happy endings because the story never ends. Yes, well, obviously, yes, the story never ends. The audience just gets up and goes home. The pinnacle of my awareness of this happened watching that movie before the end of the year, because that movie came out around Christmas time. So it was right before the new calendar year. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna like take everything that has happened in this calendar year and I'm going to like try to do my best like every day. Have I? No, but I want to, and I strive to, and I'm just trying my best. And I think that's all we can do. I think all we can do is just wake up. If you woke up and you got to work, you've done your best. And then you just take it from there and you get better and you improve. And that basic formality is what keeps people growing and keeps them wanting to get better. Because and actually I have a really good book out there for everybody. It has a little bit of faith speech in it, not speech, faith in the sense of like it talks about like this like abundance of God or whatever, but the activities in this book is what I want to focus on. And I'm going to type it in chat. It is called The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And it's by a guy named John C. Maxwell. I live by this book, and the activities in it vicariously. The activities are wonderful because it just proves to you that you are not who you think you are. You're going to always be changing. Even if you don't like it, you're always going to be changing. And even if you want to change, you're going to be even better for it. And I love that. I think that is like one of the most exhilarating feelings because I get so much out of it now, and I get to learn from my past mistakes of like having a temper and being very short-sighted about very specific things. And
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want that to drive me anymore. I want to try and figure out a way to easily get out of that spiral. You know what I'm talking about. When you
Yes.
start to think gloom and doom, you know exactly what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about. You think gloom and doom, and then it just goes and goes and goes and goes and
It
goes.
snowballs from there.
And then it becomes, if you put crabs in a barrel to ensure your survival, you're going to end up pulling up people that look just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to happen to myself anymore.
Oh, absolutely. I think, like, I've been reading a lot of, seeing in the news lately, you hear a lot about how people are moving on from jobs. There's this great exodus of people leaving their jobs, going to other jobs, or they've been off work and they're switching careers. They're moving away from service, from, retail and other things, partly because, well, money. Like here in Canada, at the beginning of the pandemic, when they announced the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB.
Okay.
It was $2,000 a month. That I was one of those people who collected it because you had to have made X amount the previous year, be off work due to COVID and blah, blah, blah. And it was a guaranteed $2,000 a month that we received in benefits, which we had to eventually pay taxes on. And they've now fixed that system, but that's neither here nor there. But the thing with the CERB was, for a lot of people, myself included, that $2,000 a month, even when you save $300 or $400 of it for taxes for the end of the year, that's still $1,600. That's more than most minimum wage jobs working 30 hours a week were making.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So a lot of people were making more money being off based on what the government calculated was the minimum wage that people needed to survive during the pandemic. They were making more on that than they were actually working 30, 40 hours a week at minimum wage. Mm. And that has caused this, I've come to refer to it as the Great Reset.
That's a very good term.
Because a lot of us, we were off work, we've been home with our families for 3 months, 6 months, year, 14 months, whatever it happens to be. We spent all this time, our kids weren't in school, we were, they were learning from home. We were trying to keep ourselves busy, either looking for other work or starting streaming, starting new businesses, starting new ventures, and just spending time sitting down and just looking at our lives, where we were, like where I'm at now at 43. I spent the last 2 years going over what have I all been doing in the last 40 years, especially in the last 20. The variety of jobs that I've worked and the different things that I've been doing. And I was doing stuff in the game industry, and then I wasn't. And then, helping out with different projects, working for different things. And none of it stuck because, for the most part, other than the writing that I'd done, which most of it was for my own self, or with my site, which is all game industry news and gaming and reviews and things like that, which is a separate thing from the streaming and a separate entity, although they're connected. That was an outlet for myself when I was a stay-home dad, to keep myself busy, to keep myself in the industry, and to give myself something to do. Mm-hmm. But I realized that when I went back to work and I was working, I saw the impact of the time that I was working, those hours, and the impact it was having on the kids. It wasn't working. It didn't work in the family situation anymore. So I had to make a change, and that's what a lot of people are doing. The people who have gained the ability to look at their lives, who've been off and realized that, things aren't working and started making progressive changes. I think that's the value that they've found in the midst of all the loss and things that have happened and all the tragedy that's happened in the last 2 years. We also have this reset where people have realized they want more out of their time and out of their lives and out of their work and out of their, and they reconnected with their families, or they realized in some cases that their families weren't working, which is unfortunate, but, sometimes that's the way things are going to play out. And when you stop and you actually have the time to realize where you are and where you're going, you see that it's time to make those changes. and the way that I've personally changed myself. I think the biggest thing, especially when it comes to streaming and making videos on TikTok or with the writing and with other projects, like when we're done this podcast, right? And I turn things off and I sit back, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to say the two words that have become my theme for the last year. And I'm just going to take a deep breath. I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to say, what's next? Because that's what it's about. What's next? What am I streaming next? What am I doing tomorrow? You know, it's not about, okay, that went well, and reanalyzing and overthinking everything that happened. I'm going to spend a little time. I'll go over the VOD, pick out some moments, clip out some things that were really good. But then I'm going to put it down. It goes on YouTube, which if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like, hit that subscribe. But I'm going to just set it down. I'm going to put it away, and it's what's next. And that's what matters.
Yeah,
because
my friend from college,
this is done.
He had a really good thing called Today I Will. So when he woke up, like his first thing that he said was, today I will, ... Today I will do this. Today I will do that.
Yeah.
So that's a great mantra.
Because
I love that.
The world's going to change. I'm going to change. And it's no longer about where I've been. I can learn from where I've been. I can learn from the nostalgia of the moments from my childhood, from my younger years, from a couple of days ago, right? I can remember those events, and I can funnel that and take those lessons and push me towards what's next, and use it for the motivation to either grow, change, or even build on what has come before into something new.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, part of what's going to come out of the last 2 years, or the Great Reset, is people are moving into what's next because they recognize that they need to make those changes.
Mm-hmm. That's what I realized. I realized that I needed to make very specific changes to my lifestyle, to how I was as a person, to who I was, to my son, and how they're going to see me. I always try to like pitch myself as someone who is not a role model. I'm just kind of a vessel. You know what I mean? Hey, Kira's here. Hey, Kira.
Hey, Kira.
I'm really more of a vessel for whatever people need for conveyance. But that's my job as an actor. That's my job as a performer. You know what I mean? Like I need to use that as like my means to an end of saying, hey, this is what I've trained to do. This is what I want to do. But I actually left teaching because I don't feel like I'm a good role model. I don't know if that's, it sounds terrible, but I know that about myself now. Was I a good teacher? I have no freaking clue. I tend to not think so. But when it comes to teaching like something like tap dance, that's something I know confidently in my heart of hearts that I can teach.
Yes.
But when it comes to other things, am I a good teacher? I have no clue. Only my students can tell me that. Right. I don't think I am. I don't think I have been. I think that I've made mistakes. I think that I've done things that I'm not very proud of as a teacher. I don't know how many lives I have positively or negatively affected. And those are just the kinds of things that I think about now because I wasn't taking care of myself enough back then to be able to take care of other people in the way that I needed to within 45 minutes per week or per class. And I feel very upset about that because I can't go back in time. I can only say, okay, yes, I am going to have to take this kind of, on the back burner from whatever parents want to yell at me and say, how effed up you made my son's life by saying XYZ. I'm just going to have to take it. I've never done anything like that, but I'm just saying like, that's the worst case scenario. And I'm just going to have to hear that, and it's just going to be one of those things. But now that I can look back on that and say, okay, I know I have to expect that, but now I know not to do that again. That's going to make me all the better for it. so I don't have to worry myself into this salt and pepper on the side of my head again. You know, I always say that that this was my upbringing, and and everything else is me. um, so yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of conversations I love to have. I love to have these like deep rooted conversations because I feel like it's that whole Eleanor Roosevelt quote. Have you ever heard that one? Great minds discuss ideas, good minds
Yes.
discuss good minds discuss events, and like I don't know, sour minds discuss people or something like that. Or average
Yeah.
minds. That's it. Yeah.
Yes.
So something like that. That's one of my favorite things because it's proven here that we can have a great conversation about everything and nothing, and it kind of just goes into the void a little bit. You know, I've seen people making fun of podcasts where they talk around in a circle
Yeah.
about everything and nothing. You know, you've seen those. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
those because it's so true, because all this goes into the void anyway. But I like having conversations that are rooted in something with meaning, because I feel like a lot of people who haven't thought about it before will suddenly have the seed planted. And I guarantee you that people who want to do that, just out of wanting to share that, spark the brain that will change the world. I might not be that person, but I guarantee you that someone who's listening who hasn't thought this way before may be that brain that helps change the world.
Well, exactly. Plus, like, even outside of whether it's entertainment or insight or whatever value others might draw from listening to us talk, right? For myself, there's value in just discussing things because it keeps me thinking and how I want to discuss things, or what the discussion brings out in my own thoughts. There's value in that for myself, and it's therapeutic to talk about these things, right? One of my fatal flaws that I had for the majority of my life, which I could blame on all sorts of things, whether it's my upbringing, my ADHD, neurodivergency, whatever it is that I was very good at making excuses to myself.
Me too.
Not to anybody else, but to myself. Right? And this is a discussion that I had with my wife, was that we've been talking about like our pandemic weight, and, you know, I mean, yes, I'm not overweight by any real degree. I've got a bit of a, you know, I've got a bit of a gut from the coffee and the beer, and just from being home and not being active, right? It's nothing unmanageable. It's nothing, you know, particularly unhealthy, but exercising, we always made excuses about, right? I was always making excuses to not exercise, whether it's, oh, it's cold outside, or, you know, the sun just isn't sitting right in the sky that day. 99% of it was bullshit. It's the same with streaming. There have been periods over the last year where I would go quiet for a month or two, and it was mostly just because of excuses. I would tell myself, oh, I don't feel like doing it today, or, it's Wednesday, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. Oh, I ate that chili 3 days ago, and I might fart on stream, so I think I'll just not stream, you know. I have learned in the last year that I'm very, very good at making excuses for myself, to myself, and convincing myself not to do things. And I've now taken control, and I've stopped doing that.
Wow.
Because I'll catch myself.
A hard thing to do.
I will catch myself making the excuse, but the most profound incident in the last month was I was in the bathroom, and I just was washing my hands, you know, as you do. And I just looked up at the mirror, saw myself, and I smiled at myself. And I cried for 10 minutes because I realized I was just genuinely in a good mood, and I liked what I saw. I haven't been at a point like that in a very long time.
I need to look in the mirror. I need to look in the mirror and really be like I'm too hard on myself.
Well, exactly. And it wasn't done with intention. I just happened to glance up, looked at myself, and I just smiled at myself. I'm like, I look pretty good today. And it was a real profound moment, because I have not felt that way since I was a teenager. Not in a recognizable way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things that Yeah, there's
The
a
Great
lot of
Reset.
things I'm not. Yeah, there's a lot of things I'm not proud of, and of things that I've done. My wife knows everything, so I'm able to tell her everything. So
Yes.
and I kind of love that about our relationship is that there's no reservations.
Mm-hmm.
I now am able to fully say, here's what I'm thinking. And I wasn't like that with her for a very long time. And it took
Mm-hmm.
me until last year to be able to do that with her. I'll never forget it. There was this car ride home where I told her, like, here are all of the terrible things I've done.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to know these things because you know that I know in our minds that both of us are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to tell you what my flaws are, and I need to tell you all of the terrible things that I've done. And I want
Mm-hmm.
you to know what these are because I don't want there to be any secrets. And
Mm-hmm.
I've told her things and even like recent things, like after we met and everything that I've done. And I told her everything. And I felt that my telling her these things opened up our relationship into a new realm that I
Mm-hmm.
was able to say, okay, I want to be able now to help you because all I felt you've done over the last 10 years has helped me. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
one who you needed to do the research on because of whatever I'm dealing with. I don't want to have to ask you for help anymore. She's a very well put together person anyway, which is why
Mm-hmm.
I'm attracted to her and that kind of
Mm-hmm.
strength.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what that is. I don't know how to tap into that quite yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding my way, but I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I look to her to be like my rock, being like, okay, like I'm going through this. What do I do? Instead of me being like, hey, honey, what's going on? A lot of the times she'll just kind of either politely or, just kind of say, oh, I'm good. I'm just dealing with this, but tomorrow's another day. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like that. I
Yeah.
I delve and then I dwell and then I
Mm-hmm.
sink and then I have to pull
Mm-hmm.
up and then you know what I mean? It's this whole process and I admire her for just being like, yes, I'm upset. Yes, I'm going to be upset, but I can't let it affect my day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how the hell can you do? How the hell can you do that so easily? So I look to her for that kind of guidance, but I remember telling her months ago, I don't want to be the only person that needs to be taken care of in this house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be able to say, I can help you. I can take care of you too. Like, this is a two-way street. It's not like the olden days where it was like no emotion in the house. Everybody sits down quietly at dinner. Nobody says a word until everybody's plate is empty. You know what I mean? Like, not that I was raised that way. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like,
No. Yeah.
this is an extreme, but there was a lot of suppression, and that suppression of emotion hinders relationships, and why a lot of couples who are not boomers, who are like
Mm.
just pre-boomer, a
Yeah.
lot of them sleep in separate beds. They don't sleep
Yes.
in the same bed. They sleep in separate beds because they're just kind of existing together. I don't want to just exist with my
Mm-hmm.
wife. I want to live with my wife. That's a very different kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm.
For all of you out there who are not married, I guess you can kind of apply this to any relationship that you feel very attached to. If you really feel like this is the kind of person that you want to live with, living with that is a very difficult thing to achieve because you have to work at it. It's not just going to be there. It's not just going to happen. It's got to be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
So we worked a lot on that, my wife and I'm so thankful for that time because and another reason why my life has been so hectic, I can't quite announce yet, but I'm very excited to. So a lot of things that are happening are a result of us being able to say, hey, what do you need? Talk to me, tell me what's going on. Um, and I still need to learn how to like leave things at work. I need to learn how to leave things like out of the house. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
like my new thing to work on because I had a terrible day last week and I was coming home and I was just like, I'm angry, like
Yeah.
and my temper got the better of me and I didn't know where that disconnect was. And so I
Mm-hmm.
brought it home and my son was standing right here and I was just very irritable and I raised my voice a little bit too much, like a little
Mm-hmm.
bit too firm over something
Yeah.
that was so silly. And did I feel terrible afterwards? Yes, absolutely I felt terrible. But does that make me a horrible person? No. I'm a human being. I have flaws, but I recognize that I have the flaw. I am not in denial of the flaw. And I think that that is where I know that if I'm drowning in that, I know something's up. So.
Well, exactly. And this is something that, fortunately, I learned long ago, but my wife particularly hasn't, is that you have to weigh the value of the things that's bothering you.
Yeah, it's emotional intelligence.
In order to be able to... And my headset just went out. Just a second.
Oh, that's okay.
All right.
For everybody watching, if you have any questions, please ask away. We don't have to just like talk about whatever we're talking about. I want to like answer fun questions, silly questions, anything. Please, whoever's watching, just ask away. This is, I love an Ask Me Anything. Trust me.
There we go. Now I'm going to take the hat off. Oh, that's the problem with wireless mics, is that eventually sometimes they just cut out.
Yep.
Anyway, but it's learning the value, whatever happens to be on your mind, but learning the value of what you bring with you, like what bothers you, and learning to let go of the small things that ultimately don't matter. And that's very tricky because what may piss a person off is different for everybody. And what has actual emotional weight for one is different than another. But like, she'll ask me like, why doesn't this bother you? And it could be somebody's opinion or whatever it happens to be. Some moment where something bad or negative happened. But I'm just like, meh, it happened. And you matter, Ty. Welcome in. But it's just that,
welcome.
You know, somebody like, a comment, somebody could make a negative comment to me on Twitter or something, right? They could be like, I've heard it before. You're too old to stream, or, you know, you're too old to be popular, things like that. And to me, it's just like, it's just noise. And I'm just like, why am I going to let that bother me? It doesn't matter. It's just some jack off spouting bullshit on the internet. It holds no emotional weight for me whatsoever. So why am I going to let that bother me? You know, but at the same time, I could, you know, drop food on the floor. Like I could be like getting my pancakes out, and all of a sudden I'll, you know, drop one and it'll splatter on the floor, and I'll be upset about it for like a week because I really wanted that pancake. And I can't let it go.
Right.
So it's just one of those things, right?
One of the lines that I have on my hip hop album that came out years ago. You can find it on SoundCloud, everybody, by the way. It's called What I Have Learned, under my real name, Jeremy Lardiri. One of the lines I have, I'm trying to think of the verse. Life is but a dream to me, but I gotta wake up. Too many wounds to heal outside the paper cut. Slip, slit, bleeding, cleaning up the feeling of the pain coming out of my purple vein. Funny how all the haters deal with their emotions. All they do is type a comment and think they're explosive. What merits do you have to tell me how to live, how to work, how to grow, and how to give in? So go back to your blogs and 9-to-5 jobs. Your low self-esteem is too easy to rob. Fix all the drama you set before all them situations come back before. Leave all the negative locations and people and things behind so better ones can get laid up and lined up for the challenge that you have ahead. I'll either conquer all my demons or wind up dead. So that is one of the things I said years ago. So I kind of like understood and had the foresight to like know, hey, I'm going to be dealing with people like this all the time. And I can't let it get to me. I just can't, because it's just words, you know, is that Kermit meme of him just typing on the typewriter, you know, that's exactly what it is. And you can't, there's a certain line that we draw when it comes to that, you know, if it's, it all comes down to bigotry, race, ethnic immorals, you know what I mean? Like it all comes down to that. When you're using this platform as a means of spouting that kind of hatred, you can kindly leave. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I don't understand what people get out of that. I mean, I don't know what people, it's like people don't think things through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think things through, but I don't think things through to the point where I'm going to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Ty, good question. We'll get to that because I want to have a little bit of a lighter question. But the true. Okay, I have this quote right here, and I paraphrased it so that it's gender neutral. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's by Samuel Johnson. And I have it right here every day to remind myself that the true measure of a human being is how they treat someone who can do them absolutely no good.
No good. Yeah. Exactly.
That's what it all comes down to. And you could call it the golden rule, do unto others. But you know what, though? Do unto others is like, I expect something in return.
Yeah.
The only thing you should expect from people is their own kindness and goodwill. Like, It's Nostalgic Magic is a brand. Would I like to make money off of that brand? Yes, absolutely. That's going to be my life. I'm not denying that. But I am not going to change who I am. I'm going to allow other people to choose, to make their own choice, whether they want to support me or not. Yes. I am not going to force that down anybody's throat. I'm not going to tell somebody, hey, I want to get to 100 subscribers to get this. I already made that mistake. I already went through that. I don't want to say, hey, if I get to 100 subscribers, I'll put out 2 brand new YouTube videos. I don't want to do that to people anymore. It's their choice whether they want to watch me or not. And I've learned that lesson early enough, which I'm very happy I did, that I can honestly say that I want to use the brand as a means of sustaining my own lifestyle, sustaining a new career. Absolutely. But I want to make it worth their while.
Yes. I have covered this before, and I made a YouTube video about it, about giving value. As entertainers, whether we're, playing games or doing podcasts, it's about giving value. And if people appreciate the value, they will support you. If they don't, then they don't. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But as for Ty's question, I actually haven't watched anything new anime-wise. I've been watching a lot of Korean dramas. A lot of K-dramas, rom-coms.
There's a great friend out there. Her name is Faye, and she's friends with Kyler, Sane, and Allie. And they've been watching K-dramas for like years now. Yeah. And so I'm always intrigued as to what they're watching. But isn't what is it? Isn't Squid Game a Korean drama?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you know what? I've only heard bits and pieces here and there. I mean, I understand it's like the most popular show in the world.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet myself, but it's really blown up. I'm watching rom-coms.
Like they take children's games like Red Light, Green Light, 1, 2, 3, and they add like a fatal,
and then they add murder, and
yeah.
I understand the concept, and I'm just like, okay, it's not really appealing to me, but like I've been watching a lot of rom-coms, a lot of K-drama rom-coms, right? And they're impactful. There's feeling behind them, but at the same time, they've made me kind of depressed because all of these young adults, whether they're professionals doing jobs, because it's a range, it's working people, it's there's some politicians, there's people in the service industry, delivery people, things like that. They're all dressed so nicely. And they're so fashionable. And, I've been spending the last year wearing gaming t-shirts all the time and jogging pants. And then there's these 20, 30-somethings, and they're all wearing blazers and turtlenecks. And, like I got my Extra Life shirt on, but there's nothing wrong with wearing that stuff. Oh, no,
I got to change my shirt.
There's nothing wrong with wearing this stuff, but I've been wearing it a little too much.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Ty's fun. Ty, you just brought up a great thing. Drama is hard for me to get into as well. And I'm the actor.
Yeah.
I'm the one who watches these for like training, you know what I mean? And to like, see and get into the mindset of the performers. But yeah, I can't watch a continuous drama. Like I can't watch Law and Order all day. You know what I mean? Like I can't watch K-dramas all day. I can't. I can't watch Attack on Titan all day. I gotta interject. Like Walking Dead, I can't watch all day. Those are shows that a lot of people can just leave on in the background and they're okay with it. I understand that my sister-in-law loves to watch these docuseries on serial killers. And there are a lot of people out there like that who could watch these like docuseries on serial killers and just like fall asleep. I'm like, nope.
No.
What? Not that there's anything wrong with the people who watch that.
No.
I don't know everybody, obviously, but like, that's just not me. Like anime. Okay, so like, what am I watching recently? Well, I just watched. What did I watch? I watched the new. Hello there. I watched the new Evangelion movies that came out in the last 10 years. Because I've watched the original series on Netflix last year. So I watched all of those episodes and then whatever that like finishing touch movie that they created. And then Prime just put out all 4 of those like retelling movies. I just finished watching those. And Neon Genesis Evangelion is very much my style because you don't just watch it, you live it. It's a very do you know the play No Exit?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's all about existentialism.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, so it's a very existentialist show. I'm very much about that. Like I'm very existentialist. Like as a means to exist, like and my reasoning through nostalgia, finding that I'm very into. So I need to watch Cowboy Bebop.
Yes,
I have never watched Cowboy Bebop. And
you need to watch the anime, then watch the movie, and then watch the live action series. The anime is coming to Netflix soon.
Yes, and that's why I'm really excited to watch.
And the movie's already on there.
Okay, great. I'm really excited to watch Cowboy Bebop. I just need to like sit down and just watch it. I tried once and I just kept falling asleep. I just need to like sit down and watch it. I just got for my birthday. Excuse me. I just got for my birthday Amazon money from my relatives. So I finally went ahead. I am a huge Dragon Ball fan. I'm a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I don't bring it up a lot because I guess that it just never comes up really. But it's the one thing that I have that my wife can't stand. So it's like it's literally my thing, and my son's not old enough to watch it yet. So it's like it's for me. I just bought the Kai Final Chapters DVDs. Okay. So like they're all recut, new music, widescreen, whatever you want to call it. I just got all those, so I'm ready to see how much filler they took out because I want to enjoy it as if I was. And I have the mangas too. I have all the manga of Dragon Ball. I have all of Dragon Ball Z. And once they come out with like some sort of a box set of Super, I'll probably save up to get that. But anyway, I also have all of Super on Blu-ray. But Dragon Ball, I've been watching the new, not the new, the final chapters of Kai. Attack on Titan here and there. Death Note is a great show. I've been watching. Death Note is a really good show. My sister-in-law, and I don't know if my brother-in-law has been watching it either, but yes, Kira, it's over 9,000. My brother-in-law, I don't know if he's watching it, but my sister-in-law I know has been watching Fairy Tail. And they're only just finally caught up, and it's been like 2 years. That's kind of like people who start One Piece now. Like I hear One Piece is a really great show, but I'm so afraid to get into it because I will never catch up. I
tried, but I just couldn't.
Gundam, Ty, I'm so glad that you mentioned Gundam. My first and Kira also mentioned it. Sorry, Kira. Yes, the both of you. So, Gundam. My first experience with Gundam was Mobile Suit Gundam Wing in 2000 on Toonami on Cartoon Network.
That's what most
after
people
Dragon
reference.
Ball Z. Yeah, that's how I got. That's how I understood what Gundam Wing was, what Gundam was, what all of that was about.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a very political show. Like I was 15 and I feel like I didn't have the mental capacity to be ready for a show like that. But I'm glad that Toonami did it because Toonami was one of those like anime catalysts for the early 2000s. And up to that point, I was already watching Sailor Moon, the Deke version of Sailor Moon, the Saban version of Dragon Ball Z, Samurai Pizza Cats, Voltron.
Yep.
So I had an understanding, Speed Racer. So I had an understanding of what anime was. But when Pokemon exploded, I actually credit Pokemon for being the thing that got anime to the States.
Yes.
Like, Pokemon did it. Like, they were the ones who I was like, wow. So this cartoon from Japan saying that rice balls are donuts, that's incorrect. I want to learn more. Actually got me to ask a buddy of mine in high school, hey, do you know any great anime like shows or movies that I can watch? Because I'm kind of more into anime movies than I am television shows, just because of my time constraints, just how my life is. I love Miyazaki. I love Miyazaki. My son loves to watch My Neighbor Totoro, Ponyo, Kiki's Delivery Service. One of my top 10 favorite movies of all time on a very personal level is Porco Rosso. But back in high school, my buddy wrote down 3 movies for me to watch. He put them on a piece of paper and he just handed me the piece of paper and he said, these are the 3 movies that you need to find and watch like as soon as possible. Ghost in the Shell.
Yes.
Ninja Scroll.
Yes.
And Akira.
Yes.
So I was 18 when I first watched Akira. I was not emotionally ready for Akira. I was in a depressed state for weeks after watching Akira because those kinds of movies that don't necessarily have a very linear form of storytelling are very apocalyptic, leave it very open-ended for you to try to figure out how the world's going to end. That was not necessarily where I needed my mind to be at that point in time because I had just moved out of my parents' house. I was all on my own. It was just literally myself and my thoughts.
Yeah.
So it was like, Akira might not have been the best choice, but I digress. No. Ninja Scroll, despite the unfortunate rape scene that's in that film, which I always skip over, despite that being in that film, beautiful animation, really great classic Japanese storytelling. But then I saw Ghost in the Shell and I really had a problem because that was existential. And I didn't realize at 15 years old that existentialism would be a thing that I would get into. But Ghost in the Shell really opened up my mind to the possibilities of like how we find a means of existence. And that's so cool. And so like those 3 movies were like my first real introduction into anime movies. And then I kind of watched other TV series from there. Oh, Full Metal Alchemist.
Yes.
I watched both Brotherhood and the original. I kind of like the first anime just from a different kind of storytelling from that one point in the middle on, like how they changed it up a little bit. I kind of like that. I favor that a little bit more, but I appreciate Brotherhood's animation and for it sticking to the manga with whole heart. But I lean more towards the first one.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. See, that's what's interesting is like with my particular generation, right? I grew up with both video games and anime's evolution and progression in the West. Because my first animes would have been Astro Boy.
I watched that.
Black and White Astro Boy.
Yeah.
And then Robotech and Sailor Moon and all those other beginning shows. And then, we were we were passing around the bootleg VHS tapes of Ninja Scroll, Akira.
Yeah, that's what I did with Dragon Ball Z.
Vampire Hunter D,
tapes.
exactly, Matt. I was just about to say that. Vampire Hunter D, and, you know, and then there was all the other ones that came out at that time, and some of those were really deep. Perfect Blue, if you've not watched that, or Paprika, you want to talk about it.
How long do we have?
We have as long as you want, baby.
Perfect. I'm pouring another glass.
But if you haven't watched Paprika or Perfect Blue, that's about as existential as you can get.
Really?
Like, that's classic anime. There was another one, I think it was called Metropolis, that was very, very hard to watch. I watched it when I was I think I was 18, 19, maybe my early 20s, I can't remember. But it was about the nuclear explosion for Hiroshima. And it was...
So you were born in 78?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to grasp how old you were at, like, certain points. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to... Because my nostalgia goes back pretty far, so...
But I think it was called Metropolis. I can't remember, but it was about the nuclear bomb exploding in Hiroshima and these two children, which were basically the centerpiece of it. And it was very visceral.
Wow.
Even for an anime. And it was heavy to watch even as a young adult, but it had a lasting impression.
We just dated ourselves. I said heavy.
I know, right? But I've always had a passion for military history.
Okay.
Just as a hobby. I devour World War II movies and World War II documentaries, World War I, the American Revolution, the Civil War, basically any major conflict. I will devour new documentaries or new findings or new movies because I'm fascinated about the decision making and the personalities that took place in them. Mm-hmm. Because it's very telling of how it defined history and how the world got to be was because of the decisions made by these people in history, especially for these key conflicts.
Yeah, I mean, World War II, we still feel the effects today. You know what I mean? Like this, we still feel it. Like there are wars that have come and gone, but like World War II is just one of those things where, society wouldn't give it up. You know what I mean? And we're coming on 80 years since the defeat of the Axis. You know what I mean? Like people still haven't given it up. And it's one of those things where the foundation of all of those things happening the way that they did, it builds to a point where you have to wonder who's still in charge.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like that's pretty crazy. Like speaking of which, my father, when I was in a really low state about 3 years ago, and I've gone low. Mm-hmm. So my father was like, "I don't want you alone. Like, what do you want to do?" And I was like, I know you're into aviation and everything or whatever, but I want you to watch The Wind Rises.
Yeah.
With the final Miyazaki film.
Mm-hmm.
And he watched it with me and he was like, that was really good. Like, I didn't know Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Emily Blunt were in this. These are big name, like these are Hollywood. Like he couldn't quite grasp that animation has gotten to this point because to that generation, it's cartoons.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like animation is like this blasé thing for kids. Mm-hmm. And they're still stuck on that. So I had my father sit and watch this with me, and he's like, that was really good. And he was like, it's really interesting to see a story told from the Axis side. Yeah. Because he's only used to seeing things from the Allies side. Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense because of where we live. Here's a movie made in Japan about how terrible things were in Japan, which people don't really remember how bad things were when the economy was in the tank pre-World War II. You know what I mean? Like, He saw this and he was like, it's really interesting to see a pre-World War II story from the other side like this, especially when it comes to aviation and naval and all of that stuff. Like, he found it fascinating, and I was so glad that I was able to watch that with him, because I think it kind of turned him on to, like, okay, maybe my son's not just watching cartoons. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty cool thing to, like, be able to share, So I feel like anime, a lot of people get this a lot of people get the wrong idea about anime because of and I hate using this as like as a stereotypical thing, but like when I used to go to Comic-Con back in like the late 2000s, right? I would go to Comic-Con, and the crazy kids out there were the anime kids. They were the crazy ones. They were the ones who were running amok and doing all the crazy stuff. It wasn't the people who were into like Marvel, DC, the comic book animators. You know what I mean? It wasn't like those people. It was the anime kids. So I feel like a lot of people get this wrong idea about like anime because of that kind of behavior. But you gotta like put some of that aside and say like, no, these are stories, like Japan uses anime as a means of storytelling because that's what those people are used to. Like, it's very common to see a Japanese businessman reading a manga on the subway train. You know what I mean? It's a very common thing. So I think now we're like saying to the older generation, like our generation, we're able to say, hey, like, I'm going to read this comic book on the train because it's a commonplace thing now. You just have to accept that this is our generation's thing. And that doesn't mean that we're still children. It just means that this is and it's all coming back around. This is how we're getting our stories. This is the way that we want to get our storytelling done to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the mediums have grown, right? There's now acceptance of these things because people are realizing, and as older generations pass on, or they actually become open to newer ideas, because you got to remember, my generation, Generation X, which I'm at the tail end of, it ranges from 40s to 50s. They're becoming the old people. We grew up with almost all of this stuff, so it's normal to us. So and watching it grow as it has with gaming and anime and all the other things, you can see the impact it's having because it's opening up new cultures to the world and providing newer experiences and new ways of storytelling. I mean, just not even 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to picture sanctioned Star Wars anime. That never would have been a possibility. And now it's a thing. Right? Yeah. And with the growth of Marvel, like, that's gotten huge. And it's not just movies. They've got TV shows and the What If cartoon, and while it's all connected, it's also separate, but it's all a thing that when I was a kid reading comic books at the cabin by the lake, I was trying to picture these things in my head, and we had cartoons, and they tried really horribly to make live action, but it was horrible, let's be honest. But now these are the things that I pictured as a kid. They're now commonplace. It's just a thing that's now part of the world.
Yeah, I always imagine like these like bigwig Hollywood studios, like what was that TV show that came out, Lois and Clark: The Adventures of Superman?
Yeah.
You remember that? So I always feel like there's like the guy at the head of the table with a big cigar in his hand being like, we want to bring Superman to, like Jonah Jameson. You know what I mean? Like, we want to bring Superman to television. How are we going to be able to do it for like an adult, like whatever? And then he's like, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. And he's just like a yes man. And he's like, yeah, pitch it. People love Superman. People will buy it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's how a lot of decisions were made then for like comic book stuff. It was just like, chuck it at the wall and see what sticks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And Kevin Feige comes along and is like, no, we're going to legitimize like telling these stories. But what we want to get out of people's minds is that superhero is a genre. Superhero is not a genre.
Yeah.
It's like Captain America movies are like spy and espionage, and the Iron Man movies are action adventure. But there's growth there, and then you have the Thor movies, which friggin' Kenneth Branagh was the first director of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
friggin' Kenneth Branagh. He's given the God of Thunder as like his means of storytelling. And hello, Kitty. And so there is this like legitimacy brought to the table where you want to make it better, but you just have to show people that there is a different side to what you're used to. People, like we said before, people get so complacent, people get so stuck. If you allow yourself to just openly accept what's presented to you instead of shaming it before it even comes out, then you're going to open up your mind to a lot more accessibility for what you least expect. Because I feel like people's expectations have gotten to a really toxic point. Call it cancel culture, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking is very dangerous because no one's perfect. Nothing will be perfect. Things can be thought out. Don't get me wrong. Things can be thought out, but it's not going to appeal to everybody. Oh, The Last Jedi is a perfect example. Right before I moved out of Queens, my friend and I, we were at a bar and we were having this discussion being like, oh, people were so upset with The Last Jedi being like, oh, it doesn't work with my fan fiction. I'm going to write all over the internet and and I'm like, yes, people just have to unfortunately accept two things. One, that The Last Jedi has happened. It's there. It's happened, even though we don't like. It's kind of like that Macho Man Randy Savage thing. You may not like it, but accept it. Yeah. So it's that, and then the other thing too is that I have to remind people constantly. These movies are intended for children. You do remember that, correct? Like I have to remind people like they were made for 12 and up. You know what I mean? Or like that kind of like a demographic in a way. Eight maybe, but like that's who these movies are designed for.
Well, that's the thing with fandom in general is there's a difference between being a fan of something and then feeling like you have some kind of claim of ownership on it.
Yeah, gatekeeping. I don't like gatekeeping, and a lot of people would think that my brand is a gatekeeping brand because it's nostalgia, but it's not. I actually am very open to wanting to learn more because that's how we figure out the why. We figure out the why by not gatekeeping. And so when someone would say to me, "Oh, I've never seen like I'm just trying to think of an extremely popular movie." Throw one out.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of people who still haven't seen Star Wars and probably never will.
So like I will say, instead of me gasping, being like, "Oh, you've never seen Star Wars," or "Oh, you've never seen Lord of the Rings," I would never do that to someone ever. I would never do that to someone. I would be like, "Oh, okay. Well, if you want to start with Star Wars, I would suggest just watching the first movie from 1977 and see if you like it." And that's it. I don't have to go into anything else. My sister. My sister went to see The Force Awakens. I don't even know if she's seen the original Star Wars film. She's just not into it. But she saw it and she came back to me and said, as a standalone, I had a really fun time watching that movie in the movie theaters. Yeah. That's all I need. You had fun. You had a great time watching a film and a franchise that you know nothing about. If you liked it, you liked it. That's great. Yeah. I am not going to I'm not going to bastardize anybody for not enjoying something that they know nothing about or have not known something about, because that's unfair. And even our reactory trajectory on them could be harmful. Yes. So if someone says, "Oh, I've never seen Singing in the Rain," if you're studying musical theater, like let's just call a spade a spade. Yeah. I studied musical theater. If I talk to a kid who's in high school and wants to be like in musical theater and wants to do that for a living, right? Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, I've never seen Singing in the Rain." I would never go, "Oh, you're studying musical theater and you've never seen Singing in the Rain. I would never do that to this kid, ever. I would be like, you know what? To be honest with you, if there's one musical movie you should see, it's this one, because it is the greatest movie musical ever made, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's one of those that you ever watch, that should be it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the conversation. And I allow them to feel everything out. Watch it, experience it, and then come back to me. That's it. Yeah. I don't know. It just baffles me how people get so defensive over somebody not experiencing something. Actually, I'm sorry to cut you off again. I'm sure you have a million thoughts going through your head. My wife and I curated a list of films that I need to see. Mm-hmm. And they're popular films. I just watched, what did I watch for the first time recently? Actually, if you don't mind, sorry, I have a phone in my hand. That's apologies. Fine.
Use the tools you have.
Jeremy's movie list. Okay, so so I have a movie list of, I'm not going to name all the movies, but the movies that I've watched so far that I've never seen, that I watched for the first time in the last 2 months: 16 Candles, The Pajama Game, Top Gun, Meet Me in St. Louis, The Sandlot. Those are 5 films that I have never seen ever in my life that people would probably gasp and say, "You've never seen Top Gun? Oh my God, why haven't you seen that?" I hate hearing that. Well, not hate. I very much dislike hearing people come to their own defense on that. And I feel like that's where the cancel culture and toxicity start. Mm-hmm. It starts with people who react in such a way that is unbefitting of somebody who just doesn't know.
Yes.
In the age of the internet, we're expected to know everything. Mm-hmm. Incorrect. When it comes to social injustices, is it good to educate yourself? Absolutely. On your own time. And if you don't know something about a subject that's going on, maybe you're involved in a discussion, maybe you are in the middle of a conversation and you're just not aware. Don't open your mouth. Don't ask questions. Just kind of allow the conversation to take its course. And then from there, use your own dissertation to be like, okay, what smart question can I ask? Oh, I've never heard of the Egyptolians describing this about Black people. How do I learn about this? What resource do you have that I can start with? That's a really good question to ask. Instead of giving your opinion on something that you don't know nothing about, ask where the resource is. And if somebody has the gall to say, "Oh, well, the internet's out there, Google it." Don't come to me being white asking me XYZ. That's not the conversation I want to have. I want to be able to have someone say to me, "Here's where you can look, here's where you can read, and I'll leave it up to you." Yeah. But it's on you to educate yourself.
Yes.
But when it comes to pop culture, and by pop culture, everybody listening, I mean movies, television, radio, music,
video games.
Kind of thing. Right, video games especially when it comes to this platform. Mm-hmm. When it comes to that, I dislike people shaming other people for not having experienced one thing or another. It gets you nowhere. It only gets you feeling disheartened. I get very disheartened when people tell me, "You've never owned a PlayStation or an Xbox. How dare you?" And I'm like, I don't understand, but I don't understand your behavior. My father always told me that attitude means nothing, especially in the workforce. When someone comes to me, when I was a manager, when someone came to me and said, "Their attitude, I don't like their attitude," I'm like, I don't understand what that means. I have no idea what that means. And then they say, "Oh, well, they're behaving like an a-hole." And I'm like, oh, their behavior. Okay, let's talk about their behavior. How are they behaving with you? That's different. When someone's behavior dictates whether they want to come to their own defense on something that everybody should know, whereas their behavior could be lighthearted, saying, "Oh, check this out. Tell me if you like it." Mm-hmm. What a world of difference. What a world of accepted difference that would make in somebody's life when they want to just learn. Mm-hmm. in a world where we're supposed to know everything. That's why we have Google Maps. That's why pencils still have erasers. That's why we have a delete button. You know?
You're absolutely right. And Matt, you're right in that there is a difference between touchstones of generation and seminal works for genres or for something you want to experience. Like, we can talk about different movies and different things that impact arts and forms, but it's more about how that's communicated. That's where the gatekeeping comes in. You know, it's not so much, oh, you want to be a dancer, but you've never seen the Bolshoi Ballet, right? You want to be a director, but you've never watched E.T. Mm-hmm. You know, you want to be a writer, but you've never read Great Expectations. It's the way you communicate that to the person you're talking to that dictates whether it's gatekeeping or it's the willingness to help them explore or give them a suggestion of what might help them in what they're looking to do if they've never experienced it.
I have a friend of mine actually. I have a friend of mine who's actually been very successful. We danced together at the same dance studio, and we got together for like a coffee one night. And he was doing very well. He was with a professional dance company in Philadelphia, and then Chicago. He's doing very well for himself. And we were talking, and I'm thinking about his level of success. And then I mentioned, I guess, I forget what movie it was. I think it was American in Paris. And he's like, I don't know what that is. And in my head, I was like, you're like working professional dancer in the field and you don't know what this is. But then instead of telling him that, in my head, I went back and I said, oh, okay. So here's a couple of movies I want you to see if you haven't seen them already. And I gave him a list and I said, here, check these out. You won't be disappointed. And he went ahead and checked them out. And he was so grateful in the way that I presented them to him because it changed him. He was like, wow, now I'm able to see like how these old movies were made. Now I have a better sense or a better idea of the history of what I'm doing professionally. Thank you so much. And I'm like, anytime. But it was my initiative on the specific actions that I took to make sure that he didn't feel like he was being bombarded with like, hey, you know, I'm like working professionally. Like, how dare you talk to me like this? I'm never going to do that to him or anybody really. I think he was just very grateful. Have I done that before? Yes, but when I was young, like much younger, high school, maybe college, you know what I mean? But since then, I made it a point to not do that to people because it really took them back and they didn't want to watch it because I either over-explained it or I over-glorified it, and then they came back and their expectations were so high and it just ruined it for them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that to people anymore. I would rather them have their own experience on their own merit, on their own time. You make the time for it. You just get back to me. Tell me how you liked it. We're getting a lot of comments here, Angelus. I love this.
Oh, I see that. See, you're understanding with you, Matt, that I get. And yeah, everyone should watch Star Trek The Next Generation. I mean, everyone should, but not everyone will. To be fair, you know, it's like, I've had this conversation like this with my wife. Like, she never really got into video games as a kid because in where she grew up, the people around her, girls didn't play video games. You know, she got that pressure from her friends and from her peers, and, you know, older kids, girls didn't play video games, so girls ended up not playing video games. So she never really got into it. She watched her brother play them or whatever, but she never got into it herself because that expectation, that gate was kept by the perception that girls didn't play video games.
Right.
Or, you know, she didn't really experience anime because it wasn't anything that her group of friends growing up were into. You know, I mean, she is 6 years younger than me, so there's that tiny little bit of generational gap between what was normal for us, but it's also the fact that, you know, as a heterosexual white dude, I had the privilege of having just about everything open to me that even my, you know, white heterosexual wife didn't because she was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't, like, she's explaining to me the way things were shown to her and what she was told, and I had to learn how that affected her and her perception of pop culture, because it did.
But like between you and me and the rest of the world listening, our comprehension of things outside of us being heterosexual white males is going to be very difficult to comprehend, because we're not going to have that unless it's forced down upon us. But the problem is that we have the ability to fight back and not get penalized for the most part, and that hurts a lot of people. But I think that you and I being allies to a lot of different causes is very good, because it proves that there are some of us out there who will listen, and have learned to listen and have learned to say, okay, I'll shut up now. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really important quality, especially
now. One thing, like, I say I'm a writer, or now I'm, broadcasting and entertaining on Twitch, or whatever you want to call it. At the very core, and this was part of the Great Reset, is that I'm a communicator. And the biggest part of communicating is also listening. And that's true even when it comes to parenting. Is, everybody talks about how the different ways of parenting, and whether to, punish your kids, or, be their friends, and helicopter parenting and all of these things. Yeah, we're never doing phrasing, Matt. We're never doing phrasing. Is that it's all about communication and learning how to communicate to your kids, or to your spouse, or to your friends, or to your audience. It always comes down to communication. And the biggest mistake that parents make is not listening to our kids. Because we were raised, or I know I was a latchkey kid, like Matt, where we would come home and we were alone a lot of the time. Because our parents were at work, or they were doing things, and we were left alone.
Both my parents worked as well.
Spent a lot of time alone. You're used to reactionary parents.
Yeah, I actually had a very fortunate upbringing when it came to both of my parents working. It had a lot of cons as well, but it had a lot of pros. One of those pros were that my parents actually was part of the au pair program. Do you know the au pair program?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, you bring people like sitters over from other countries, and they want to study abroad for a year, and they also like babysit you or whatever. I had a very fortunate opportunity as a child to be encountered with many different cultures. So like from Holland, Denmark, Germany, France, South Africa, Australia, I was very fortunate to England. Even I was so fortunate to have so many young women who were like 19, 20 years old come over and teach us about their cultures. So I was very cultured at a very young age. I just didn't know it. I didn't realize it, but I have come to loving that I've been able to accept other cultures from a very early state. It was a very positive influence on me. Had I wished that I had a better relationship with my parents growing up? Yes, absolutely. But that has since been on the mend, because we're adults and we're able to communicate, and you talk to your parents differently when you're adults, because now they're almost peer-like. You know what I mean? Yeah. You're able to like really get to understand who they are, how they tick and everything. But like you said, to your point before, the ability to be able to listen is a really key factor in us being able to unify and have a sense of equality. I love the app Clubhouse. Do you know this app?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so Clubhouse. When I was first introduced to Clubhouse, the first conversation that I was ever able to listen to or be a part of was a team of Black writers and directors talking about how they want to change the Hollywood medium and how they want to change and do different kinds of storytelling. And I interjected saying, I love hearing this because I want to hear different stories. I want to hear different things. And I want to hear it from all different kinds of people. Like
Right.
it's gotten to the point now where we've become stagnant and too careful. I want to hear really great, bold stories coming from Black writers, watching
Yes.
Black directors. I want to see that. I crave that because it's something new.
Yes.
But of course, what happened for years? Suppression.
Yes.
No more. It's not happening anymore. Like we are pushing diversity, and I kind of like
it's
that.
getting there.
I
would not be
too callous to say yes. That it's
yes.
Yeah.
It's starting. That's as far as I'd be willing to go. I'd say it's starting.
Yeah, but we're getting somewhere because people are speaking out and people aren't being quiet anymore. Like Tupac even said it. He was like, what was he saying? Tupac was like, you get people who are like singing cute little songs being like, we are hungry, please let us in. Like there's this room full of like food, right? Controlled by white people. Like there's this room full of food and the Black people are outside and they're just like, we are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. That didn't work. And so that turns into, we are hungry, please let us in. We are hungry, please let us in. And then it turns into walking to your door, breaking down the lock, and then all of a sudden it's I'm picking the lock, coming through the door, blasting. They're not going to ask anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm glad because it's really important that we get that. We need it. We need it. We need it. We need equality. It's just so.
Yes.
It's so important. It's so important, especially after this pandemic and all of the hatred amongst and being shown towards the Asian community. It's just just baseless. It's baseless conjecture. And it's just rooted in hatred, and it just has to stop. It just has to stop. Let me go through these comments. Let me see. Very special and fortunate upbringing in the American South. I didn't know Jewish people were real until I moved away. Oh, okay, you saw a lot of melons back then. Stagnant careful is part of why things like K-dramas and such are becoming super popular. Is a whole new thing. Yeah, but this is great, Matt, because those kinds of things I think we're missing. And the fact that now we have a means of being able to have access to those kinds of stories is wonderful. You are not going to get it on network television quite yet, but we're getting there. And I think to Angelus's point of we're getting there is crucial because eventually we will get them on there because the people who hopefully one day will run the networks are going to be people who are our age. You know what I mean?
Well, like to that point, I will say I don't care about television anymore.
Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Because I don't consume media through TV. I don't watch TV. I watch television programs at my convenience through one of the streaming services when I have the time and the ability. But the television, that's for playing video games on. And so, Netflix and Amazon is building an anime library and foreign films and foreign television. Netflix is building foreign television. I say foreign, but I should say multinational television and movies, anime, and all of these things. And the traditional networks are trying to play catch up with this, with their own launches of streaming services, most of which are probably going to fail because it's unnecessary. And eventually we're going to end up with TV 2.0 with all these streaming services that most people aren't going to watch. But we're already seeing these things. They're there. They're readily available. They're on some of the biggest media platforms that exist now with Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. So it's there. It's a matter of connecting the audience to the media. That needs to happen.
Yeah, it's funny. I've said it 10 years ago to somebody. My aunt and my uncle who live in Brooklyn, they are very much like, I don't know how to put this. They're higher societal. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like they bring in a lot of people who earn a lot of freaking money. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Who have a lot of power. So
Mm-hmm.
here I am, this 20 something sitting at a dinner table saying, "Oh yeah, in 10 years like cable is going to almost be obsolete. Like people are just going to want to do a la carte entertainment because they want to watch it on their own time. Like people are
Yes.
going to make their own time. People aren't going to be forced to watch on somebody else's time." But to that effect, my family, we have designated a time. It used to be every Wednesday. Now it's every Thursday. Every Thursday
Mm-hmm.
night, we watch one show together, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
live or not. We have
Yeah.
decided that that is our television family time. Even though it's once a week, it's still a designated time. That is the time
Yes.
we come together to watch something. And that is actually important to me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like, not every family has that. Not every
Yes.
family is going to get that,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, just because of how bad off some things are, some parts of the country and some parts of
Yeah.
the world. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get that. But I feel that I'm in a fortunate position to be able to make that kind of hour happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to me that that hour be spent together watching something at the same time. You
Yeah.
know, that is very precious time to me because
Mm-hmm.
we're able to share in an experience, you
Yes.
know, because my wife will watch her show on her device. I'll be here in the office watching something on the television here. My son will be playing with his toys and we're all doing something completely different, but there's no combined time. I'm never making my child watch Lost ever.
My kids would be bored with it. My kids have no interest in it.
They go in, you know, oh, here's the other thing. Okay. So storytelling. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this. There are shows like Lost who that don't know where the show is going.
Yes.
They have a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
They start filming
Mm-hmm.
and they pay their writers extra money to come up with things on the fly for shock value. But then when you get to the end, it's not really an ending.
No, shows don't know how to end.
Whereas you get a show like Futurama,
Mm-hmm.
ended 3 times, right?
Yeah.
However, they had a plan from the very beginning. And
Mhm.
the only reason we know that is from the pilot episode, we see Nibbler's shadow.
Yeah.
So there are different kinds of shows out there. There are shows where you get a team of writers to go on these. Well, they used to do writers retreats where they would take like 2 weeks and they would like basically bang out a season of ideas and then assign writers different scripts and different whatever, and they would go ahead and write it.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you get people sitting down in a room, and correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, but you get people to sit down on a Zoom call or whatever, and you talk about a season, and you're just like, okay, where are we going with this? And then Once Upon a Time happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you had so much potential to have a beginning, to have a middle, to have an end. With all of these franchises that Disney owns, ABC, and you just kind of let it float away with popularity based on what was trending. And I'm like, I don't think you can write something that will stand the test of time like that. You can't. We have to stop writing big blockbuster. Someone had mentioned something like writing for Blockbuster, right? Like we have to stop writing blockbuster things. And we have to start writing for things that are going to last for eons.
Mm.
Like a show that I know I can still watch today is Seinfeld. Because it's a show about nothing. It's a show about nothing. These are topics, these are subjects that everybody still talks about today. Like the stupidity of something. You know what I mean? Like, even though the show itself is dated, there are still subjects in there that can be brought up even today where they're like, I feel like we've had this conversation before. Yeah, I think we have. Yeah, of course we have. Because we've experienced it. We've lived it. Is The Greatest American Hero a show that I would pull up on the random? Maybe not. But like Knight Rider? Maybe not.
Not.
But
no.
But shows like Friends that have this like synonymity with what life was like in the 90s, that's the kind of show that will last, because kids nowadays will watch this and be like, no way in heck would anybody have that size apartment in New York City nowadays. But like some of the subject matter might be a little bit off by today's standards in how the scripts were written, but they were written for the time.
Yeah.
But people will still watch them because it's just good writing. It's good television. It's these 6 really solid actors, like, you know what I mean? Like, showing what they can do. And sometimes you don't even have to watch the story. It's like you're watching the performance. And that's what made, I hate saying it like this, but I am. It's what made NBC must-see TV.
Yeah.
Frasier is such a smartly written show.
Yes.
Can a lot of those things still be talked about today? Yeah, sure. A lot of them can't, but you can still watch a show like that and listen to the writing and still be amazed at how a show like that was still able to just shoot off to the moon like that. You had a very specific audience for that show, but it stuck. It stuck. And it just baffles my mind that I can't really find a lot of stuff like that anymore, except for the stuff coming out multinational.
Yeah. No, exactly. Because storytelling in the rest of the world hasn't changed as much as it has here in the West. Because the audience is different. And I'm going to let you answer Matt's question. I will be right back because I have to go do things with my old man bladder.
Go do your thing. For everybody who is here, just give Angelus just a moment. I want to personally thank everybody for showing up here on Angelus's channel to listen to this podcast. It's been wonderful to see everybody's comments in the chat. This isn't just a discussion between Angelus and I. Please interject with any ask us anything questions or ask me anything. I am more than willing to answer any kind of question. Well, in good taste, any kinds of questions that you might have for myself since I'm here. I'm having a wonderful time. I did not expect to be up this late because I'm bald and growing older, but I'm so excited to be here with my glass of wine. And to just like hang out with everybody. So please, if you have any questions, please ask away. It doesn't have to be about anything really. Just please, by all means. I'm just happy to be here. I wanted to talk about. He's avoiding my MASH question. Matt, there's a great thing at the beginning of the Family Guy Star Wars episode, It's a Trap, where they have the a long time ago thing come up, and it says a long time ago, after MASH, but before after MASH. I thought that was one of the funniest things I have ever seen, and it's one of the most honest things I've ever seen, because it really makes you think about like that this story was taking place such a long freaking time ago. But in our realm, it happened before before after MASH. Like, that's just so funny. How do I feel about MASH? I don't know if I have any feelings about MASH. I do remember nostalgically. That's why I'm here. Nostalgically, I remember staying up on those late nights in like 7th grade or 8th grade or like high school, and MASH was still on Channel 11 in New York at like 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning after Coach. Remember that show? And I would watch MASH, and I heard the laugh track, and I was kind of confused as to like why they have a laugh track in like a war show or whatever, but MASH was a really good show. I've only seen a handful of episodes, but MASH was a good show for what I've seen. I don't really have much else to say on it because I haven't really delved into the show itself, but that was definitely one of those shows where like it was the water cooler show. You know, you think about like what these executives are thinking What are people going to talk about in 80s Wall Street corporate business around the water cooler? You know, when they go to get their donuts, what are they going to be talking about? They're going to be talking about our shows. And I feel like MASH was one of those kinds of shows. You know, like it was written for water cooler talk. You know what I mean? Like it was a very generation relatable show.
Yes.
And people spoke about it at on the construction sites, around the water cooler, in the boardrooms before and after, in the cubicles. You know what I mean? Like it was that kind of a show. You have to think now, like shows are written for when people are going to discuss them. Squid Games, right? Let's talk about Squid Games. I have not seen the show, but I've already heard and seen so much about surrounding the show, memes that I just completely are going over my head that I do not understand, but I'm aware of it. Yeah. That's my water cooler. That's my boardroom pre and post talk. Like, oh, okay, I kind of overhear the conversation. I haven't watched the show yet. Maybe I should get into it. That's how things are written nowadays. What really pains me is people who write in the comments of the creator of Squid Games, of his story. It took him 10 years to get this story even off the shelf.
Yeah.
10 years of suffering, having to sell his $635 laptop to pay a bill. And people are congratulating him, being like, yeah, this is a great never give up story. No. We need to fucking stop. And notice I curse. This is when I really get passionate. People need to fucking stop glorifying suffering.
Yes.
For art. No. Yes. Absolutely not. Why do you think all of the people who are working crew on these television shows are up in arms ready to go on strike? No 6 days a week. Absolutely no more 16-hour work shifts. You don't have a life. You are driving home 2 hours from a shoot to sleep for 2 hours, and you're sick. You have to go to the doctor, but you can't because the show must go on. That mentality of 10s to 12s needs to stop. It has to stop. And we need to start putting the arts in a 9-to-5 atmosphere.
Yes.
We have to. It's gone to the point where it has become this unhealthy mental obsession with getting the work done at the behest of people's poor health.
Yes. Well, I mean, that's true for most industries. In a lot of ways, a lot of industries. Like my sister is working for a big corporation here, and she did, I think, 6 12-hour shifts in a row, half of them nights and half of them daytime. And I cannot concept working like that.
No.
But when you look at Hollywood and TV and these 16-hour shoots, whether it's a movie or a television show, and you think about how much hard these people are working, they're on set, and the crew and the actors and everybody, they're all doing this type of work, and they're doing 12, 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they're on location and doing these hours away from their families and whatnot. It's no wonder that so many relationships disintegrate in that industry. It's because they have no time to actually have relationships or have meaningful relationships, because they're trapped on these locations for 6 months or a year doing these grueling hours that no sane person would want to do. And yes, Matt is in the game industry. The game industry is just as insane. Okay.
Yes, so I only surface know what goes on within the gaming industry, so I don't really have a lot to say on that.
There are parallels, especially when it comes to crunch, where
I had just seen that. Okay.
Game development, we're talking about people are sleeping and staying in the office They basically just sleep under their desks because they're working insane hours to finish the product to get it out. They're not going home to their families.
That's what the whole problem with Cyberpunk was last year. I read a whole New York Times article on it, and that was a really big eye opener for a lot of people.
That's a thing that's commonplace in the industry and has been for years. It's starting to change.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think that expose really like woke people up. Yeah.
Well, exactly. But this is not something new. And those of us who have been in or around the industry, we've been aware of it the whole time. It's just now people are starting to speak up about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's very similar. And that's why you don't hear, especially with actors, you hear about how their relationships fall apart all the time. It's no wonder. They're living in unsustainable mental conditions where they don't have time to connect with their families or with their spouses or with anyone really, other than the people that they're experiencing it with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to decades. I was there when EA Spouse happened. Wait, EA Spouse. Do you mind elaborating, Matt? I don't know what that entails.
I'll let Matt bring in that story.
Okay. Anyway, so yes, so I stand with those workers. I mean, I don't know. Do you know Beebs Louise?
Yes.
Okay, so she is part of like the crews and everything, and I actually first heard that everything was going down through her before I heard it from my other industry friends.
Yeah.
So I was like, what's going on? And me being part of SAG-AFTRA, I was like, well, I want to stand with this because I want to make sure even the crew gets the same treatment. You know what I mean? Because that's really important because we all got to work together. I don't care if the crew hates the actors. Like, that's just going to be the industry norm forever.
Yeah.
I still need to make sure that you guys are okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where it comes down to. But yeah, I am flabbergasted with just how poorly these companies think that they can treat their people.
Yeah.
I am very fortunate in that I am working for a company that actually has very good by corporate standards, very good worker retention or what's the word I'm looking for? Not culture, but like they take care of their employees pretty well. So I work for this company, and Angelus knows which company I'm talking about, but I can't say here. But they treat their employees very well and well enough that they will help them in a bind. I am working at their warehouse. And so I get like a corporate discount. Could their health insurance be better? Absolutely. I wish it was because then I would join it. But that's beside the point. That's America. Oh, well, I shouldn't say America. I'm sorry. That's the United States. But the company though, they will allow me to work my shift and not force me to work the overtime.
Yeah.
There's incentives to work overtime, but it's not forced upon me. I thought it was, but that changed, which I'm really happy about. So if I decide to work a specific amount of overtime, they will gift me something. They will compensate me, which I think is a really good initiative. There's incentive there. There's not a forcefulness to it. You know what I mean? So, and I luckily have supervisors and leaders that are very low maintenance, that are like, here's your job for the week. If I need you to do something specific, I will come and let you know. I will not hover you. I will not micromanage you. I'm just going to let you start the week, know what you got to do, and I'll let you know if anything else comes away. So I was like, okay, this is great. I can walk in, I can just start my job, come home, pay the bills, and do It's Nostalgic Magic. Great. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. That's what a company should do. That's what a company should be. They should hire you knowing that you can do your job effectively. Even though what I'm doing is mindless busy work, like, let's be honest, it's still a job. And a job's a job. And if you're able to do that job well and meet your deadlines, that's where it counts. You know what I mean? Okay, so let me read Matt's thing. TL colon D Doctor TL. Okay. A programmer's wife got sick and tired of seeing her husband work 80-hour weeks. Wrote a blog post and it got picked up by a ton of news outlets. That's why a lot of overtime laws in California put in.
Yep.
Do I remember? Wait. I don't know
You
if
might have heard something about that.
I
Yeah.
might have. I don't want to say it if I have though, but it sounds familiar. But I don't want to like say anything if I don't concretely remember. But wow. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Oh no.
That's common currency in the game industry.
It's time.
It's starting to change, but
that's good.
You know.
Oh, you know who brings up a lot of industry stuff is Chara Lanazard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who is a journalist for, I forget where she's a journalist for, but I'm sorry, they're non-binary. They are really smart and they're really freaking clever. They were like built for the internet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I just love reading their stuff because it's just so internet. You know what I mean? Speaking of which, Angelus, I wanted to ask you a question. Is there anybody in like on YouTube, Twitch, or podcasting that has made it to, I guess, influencer status, if you want to call it that or whatever, that you followed for years that you admire or look up to? Because I certainly have mine.
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I say that because, for the most part, to be perfectly honest, before pre-pandemic, I didn't watch streamers. I hardly ever was on Twitch. The only times I was on Twitch was for special events, like game presentations, E3, things like that, or the rare time that I streamed, or when Matt and I and Daigoji did our podcasts from a very long time ago now. The first season was in 2006, I think.
Okay.
The archives still exist on YouTube, but tucked away quietly because they're horrible. Horrible. Anyway, so, and I never really watched YouTube. My kids did. So I watched them, like, how they're terrible, but we tried. It's true. And from that experience, I've now learned quite a bit to where I am now. But, wow, they were bad. Anyway, so I never really watched YouTube either because I was, the last 10 years I've been doing game journalism, game writing with my site and focusing on the writing and stuff. And I never really took the time to look into it because I didn't have a reason. For a long time, I couldn't understand why people watched streamers. I couldn't understand why people watched other people play games. Because it was so far outside my experience that I didn't.
Well, you and I are from that mental capacity. Like, I can just play it myself, or if I don't own it, I don't want the experience spoiled for me. Like, I totally get that. I totally understand that mentality. I don't know. The reason I asked is because I have a couple of people in mind who, like, my brand is based on, who I really look up to, who I've actually met in real life. Gerard Khalil, the completionist.
Yes.
Okay, so I had the fortunate opportunity of meeting him in person, and I'm really glad I did. The day that I met him changed my life moving forward as an entertainer. I went to this thing called New Jersey GamerCon in 2019. It was a day in July. And I got tickets because the crew from Normal Boots, the company, was going to be there. So I got to meet Gerard. I got to meet Alex Faciani. I got to meet Shane Gill of Did You Know Gaming. I got to run into Peanut Butter Gamer. I got to talk at length with The gaming historian, Norm. I also got to talk at length with Gerard's producer, Fraser, talking shop about everything and nothing, about our acting training and being on different coasts and everything. I got to run into the guys from Continue when they were still part of Normal Boots. I didn't get to meet Chad Tronic, but I saw him do like a live panel and everything, which was a lot of fun. But I got to meet all of these people. And the way that if you look at a earlier, I would say, like around the time when Gerard had to cut Greg out of all of his stuff, the way that Gerard filmed his stuff, the way that he cuts back and forth between himself and the game footage, the B-roll, if you will.
Yeah.
A lot of that, and the way that the gaming historian films his stuff, all of that is a combination of how I film my YouTube videos. Like and that's why they're influencers. You know what I mean? Like they don't see themselves as that because they're humble enough to still be able to say that they are still enjoying what they do. I mean, friggin' Gerard is on G4 now. Like he's earned his spot. He has earned his spot. But when it comes to like watching like YouTube and stuff, I actually started watching stuff on like screwattack.com. Like that's how I found out about who Gerard was and Pro Jared and like this great web series called Name Tags, which was based off of Scrubs. And it's about life in a video game store. You know what I mean? Like those, like me watching those, I was like, wow, this is going to be the future. This is going to be what we're going to have to like compete with or like have to like do. And I've watched Gerard since his 16th episode of the original run. For over 10 years, I've been watching him every week. And I'm like he is my favorite internet entertainer for a lot of reasons. He's a great person. He's got a very big heart. He works harder than so many other people I know. And he gets the job done, and he's earned his spot. You know what I mean? Like, he's earned it. This is a guy who I can honestly look up to and be like, you're younger than me, but we're in the same age bracket, and I have nothing but the utmost respect for what you've done. Yeah. Like, I want to be that. I want to be that. And that's something to strive to. That's something that I think we all should strive to. Is it much harder now to do that than it was when he started? Tenfold. Absolutely. Because everybody thinks they can do it because they make it look easy. And it's not easy.
No.
Jahara is a really great example of that. Jahara has, and a couple of other people actually. Paige the Witch. I'm trying to think of other contemporaries that I'm trying to think of that have earned their spot. Trisha Bites.
That's what I was thinking when you asked me that. Is like, before I started streaming myself, I never really watched streamers. But now if I think about who influences or who inspires or motivates me, it's my contemporaries. Now, right? Like the people that I talk to or communicate with, hang out, some of whom are hiding out in chat right now, you know, or are regulars on the channel. Like, there are people, I'm watching what you guys do, you yourself included, and watching the way you present yourselves and the way you talk to chat. And, you know, like Archaic One, Hermit, you know, Samaris, all of these people, and the new breed of streamer, basically, who've all started in the last year or two. Not like I've now been exposed to older streamers, and there's some streamers, some very big streamers that I knew 10 years ago when they were still game journalists or whatever, and I've had contact with them before they became big, who are now very large streamers who I still talk to occasionally, but I don't bring them into this because it's not relevant, because this is something I had to do for myself, especially when I didn't know my ass from my elbow when I started streaming back a year ago. I had to learn this entire different language. So, for me, it's the people that I've been coming up with, who some have taken off and some are still doing the same things as hobbyists, and it runs in between. But that's where I see the inspiration to keep going and the motivation, and seeing what you guys are doing and wanting to be unique. But at the same time, if I see something that works, I'm going to steal it.
Well, isn't that the whole thing? Like a great artist steal, right?
Exactly. Like, but I'm going to give credit where it's due. If I see a bit, like if you do a bit that I think is really cool, I'm going to steal it and do it my own way.
Right.
But I'm going to say, I saw Nostalgic do this thing. I thought it was great. We're going to try it and see how it lands. And it may work, it may not work. But that's what I like about the collaborative space and being able to talk to people. Especially, I like talking to people who aren't necessarily streamers, but who are entertainers in multi-platform ways, because it's very easy to get monovision about doing one specific thing on one specific platform in one specific way, when it's all about the variety and the adaptation, right? Twitch is the school of improv for the modern age.
Yeah, it is. And I've had a lot of people actually ask me from the non-gaming space who are like, actors and performers and everything. Hey, can you like tell me what Twitch is all about? And I'm like, well, it's perfect for something like improv. If you want to have your chat like completely interject like what's going to happen next, like that would be really cool.
Yes.
Just put on an improv show and that's going to be your thing. You know what I mean? Or you can have like a cooking show. You can have a cooking channel. You can have whatever you want. It's up to you. Like this is basically television now. Like whenever I broadcast, and I don't like to say stream because I feel like I'm swimming in a river, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Whenever I broadcast, I'm running my own television show.
Yes.
That's what I'm doing. Like right now we're on our own television show. That's what
Twitch is the modern broadcast, public access TV.
Yes.
This is Wayne's World writ large.
Public access. Yes, this is public access. And it's interactive public access. And that's what separates us from PBS.
Yes.
Is that we are passive. We do not need to passively watch. We have a choice.
Yes.
And that is entirely up to the broadcaster if they want to make it passive or active.
Yes.
So if the broadcaster, let's just say, is playing a game, they're not talking, they're not acknowledging chat, they're just playing the game, and they have let's just say 100 people, right? Let's just say they have a small, like, you have to envision physically what 100 people in a room looks like. 100 people in a room looks like you're at a hotel doing a convention and you're speaking to a room of people, right?
It's like one of those workshop panels at a convention.
Right. But if you have 100 of those people sitting there and you're just playing a video game and you're not saying a word, kind of interesting, to say the least, how you're able to keep that kind of retention. Whereas, if I had 100 people, God willing, if I had 100 people sitting down in a large room watching me play a game, I don't care if there's any reaction behind me or not. I'm still going to make it entertaining for them because that's the show. The show is to be entertainment and to be entertaining. I think that it boggles my mind how people can broadcast and they want to get more viewers and they just don't. I don't know. Not that they don't do anything, but they're just so plain. I don't know what it is. I can't really explain it, but yet people are putting their videos on YouTube and they're putting their react videos on YouTube and they're getting thousands of likes. And here I am putting in hours of work and I've only have less than 200 views per video. Like, what am I doing wrong? It's a very, very fickle thing. And it's very difficult to navigate.
It's interesting you bring this up, and this is actually, I'm going to sew into a bit of a promo for the Discord with the stream.
Cool.
I call it Streamer Resources Channel because I couldn't think of a better fucking name for it. But Devin Nash put out a video today, I believe, or yesterday. I actually watch his content because it's interesting, and it was about the marketing in this day and age for social platforms, and a lot of it had to do with YouTube and how big YouTubers have learned how to market their videos. And newer YouTubers, newer streamers, newer broadcasters, even new TikTok creators have to learn how to market their videos to get a bigger reach, to draw attention to their content. And it's true, right? Like I have a background in marketing, but my background in marketing was largely to do with video games, both as consuming press releases as a game journalist, but also I did work as part of marketing for some video games, part of the community team for video games, and I've done some other marketing stuff and internships and work outside of video games as well. So I have an understanding of marketing and social media marketing itself. It's about translating that type of marketing skill set specifically on how to market my YouTube content or my Twitch content. And that's a thing that's the missing ingredient I've discovered, is how to market that content to draw attention to it. Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of us still need to learn. I know I do.
I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out what I need to do to get it out there. I know how to do it as an artist, you know, like as Jeremy Lardieri, the performer. I know how to do that. I know how to market myself, but to market the brand to the mass audiences, that's pretty tricky.
Yes.
But I feel like I'm able to, I am more capable of connecting with people using the brand than I would have being marketing me.
Yeah.
You know, like me marketing myself as a performer was much more difficult, but marketing the brand is much easier. It's just that I have to consistently do it and constantly do it. And I don't know if I have that kind of time anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's what it is. It's pulling those hours at night. You know, what's it going to take? And that's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, I have two thoughts on that, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. The one thought is, yes, even myself, I need to learn how to market my channel better and my content better. I understand that. And I've been actually going back over, looking at, you know, these videos and these people who speak about marketing and how to market in this platform or this age and what's changed, and, you know, but also going back to the fundamentals of marketing. But it's also a thought that I had when I hear you say about you're not sure about having the time to do it. How much is that having the time? How much is that you telling yourself you don't have the time? Are you how much time are you spending telling yourself you don't have the time when you could be using the time you're telling yourself that to actually do the thing?
Right. See, here's the thing. The reason why I say that the time is fleeting in a way is that my job is very physically demanding. If I personally don't get enough sleep, I could get injured.
Yes.
So I have to find a means to an end on how much sleep I need to get so that I don't get injured. Because if I don't get injured, I don't have a job. If I don't have a job, I can't pay the bills.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
When it comes to biding my time, I actually have made a schedule where I will take specific hours out of my day when I get home from that job to work on what I need to work on.
Yes.
So I have it set, and and I ran it by my wife to make sure that I have enough time between that and family.
Yes.
So I've made that, but seeing the results of that is very minimal. So now I'm at the point where I have to try and re-strategize.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at right now. That's why a lot of people have been like, hey, where's your new stuff? And I'm like, it's coming. It's just that I'm trying to work around a lot of different
all of the things. Yes.
To everybody. Right. And so
absolutely.
I understand that. And the only excuse I would make is that I do need the sleep in order for me to do the job that pays the bills.
Which that's not an excuse. That's a fact of life. which I completely understand.
So that fact of life is the only thing that kind of gets in my way.
Yes.
But I refuse to let it be my excuse.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I totally understand. I'm not in denial of it.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm a very logistical person. So when it comes to that, I'm not in denial of what the actual like work to put in has to go into it. You know, because I've done it all my life as a performer. I know the work has to go in. Right.
It's just the nature of how you're working might need to change. Like what you're doing.
That's new groundwork that I have to do. That's all new stuff.
And that is another time commitment that factors into everything, which I don't have certainly a team understand.
Of people. It's just me. It's just
exactly
me.
Right.
If I had another person doing it for free to be like, hey, I'm going to do a schedule now. Like I'm going to put out a TikTok this time of day at this, and then say, hey, look, I need you to edit all this. I would be in a totally different ballgame, but I don't have that person. It's just me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get deterred from that. And that's why people are like, oh man, this is hard. And I'm like, well, of course it is. If it were easy, everyone would do it. Right.
Well, I mean, 11.2 million people are broadcasting on Twitch.
Yeah.
I think that was the latest number I heard was 11.2 or 11.4 million unique channels.
That's crazy. You know what's
and
really
that's
funny?
just
Said, tell me you're old without telling me you're old. And I said Justin TV.
Oh my god. I remember that. I remember putting I can't remember who it was. I think it was iJustine, actually. I remember opening up that channel and I think she was asleep.
Oh my gosh.
Like the live stream and she was just asleep. And it was just like that. And I think that was the moment that I turned it off. I closed it and I'm like, I don't understand it. And that's what stopped me from streaming for a very long time. Was these people were just sleeping on stream. And they had hundreds of viewers. And my mind could not process that.
Yeah.
Like my brain refused to understand what was happening in front of me.
My wife is like that with TikTok now. She's like, her brain is refusing to understand what the whole mishigas is with TikTok. Like she refuses to download the app and everything. And I don't have the heart to tell her to be like, if you download this app, you're not going to get anything done. Like I don't have the heart to tell her. I'm just going to let her just kind of like decide if she wants to download it or not. So like people like iJustine, Completionist, Matt Pat the NES Punk, even James Rolfe, the Angry Video Game Nerd, who actually is an alumni of my college. He was a senior when I was a freshman. I swore I saw him in the computer lab constantly working on whatever he was working on, because the year after he graduated, guess what we saw?
Yeah.
Guess what we saw on ScrewAttack.com? We saw the Angry Nintendo Nerd.
Yep.
And it's just really crazy how far he's come and how everyone uses him as the him and ScrewAttack.com as like the grandmaster of how this all should work. You know, like a lot of people are like, how is he so successful? And I'm like, well, he's certainly not the first to do it, but he's the first one to make it successful. And I've actually realized something that he's done that has made him so successful. He never commented back on anything, positive or negative, about his show, about his brand, about anything. He never comments back, ever. He just reads it. He has a team now who does that for him, but he reads it and he takes it in stride and he improves upon his product based on what he's read.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to comment back on it. He doesn't have to say a word.
And
he's been doing this for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And that is amazing to me. That's why I know that whenever I receive a comment, positive or negative, I'm not going to type anything back. I could like it if it's great. If I like it, I'll heart it, but I won't comment back on it because then I'm giving in. I'm giving in to the positive. I'm giving in to the negative. Would I love to say thank you to the positives? Yes, absolutely. I would love to say thank you, but I say thank you at the end of each of my shows.
Mm.
If it's negative, that's what I read and I say, oh, okay, so this is an opinion, but it's a note, and as a performer, you're taught to take the note, and it's your ability to take that note and receive it and do what you will with it, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And then proceed. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I need to learn how to adapt and proceed. Someone like Jahara is amazing. They are one of the people that I have seen grow so quickly on Twitch and on TikTok just because they understand in their entirety as a human being who they are and what they're all about.
Yeah.
And they show that to the world at 110%.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what John Cena does. He is himself in the public eye. He is himself times 100 or times 10, and that's how he made his name. That's how the name John Cena has become a brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's how he has become the icon. And so you have to think now, you're putting in the time. Oh, and another person I have to mention is Sweet Tails. Mm-hmm. She is another one who has just taken who she is and has gone through the depths of terrible things that have happened to her and has come out on top knowing that her being herself is all that she needs.
Mm-hmm.
And she does that. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's doing. And I've said this before. And that's not to say that she is coming off as being fun or whatever. You know what I mean? Like she seems like she doesn't know 100% of the time of what's going on, and she might not. But when that camera goes off, she knows exactly what she's doing.
Yeah.
She gets the clips, she puts them out, she makes the TikToks, and she finds the time to do it. And she finds the time to be herself 110% in front of the world because that's what she's good at. She's good at being herself. Yeah. And my problem is I might not be that good at being myself. And maybe that's what's holding me back. I am the only one who's going to hold me back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like one of those aha moments, one of those epiphanies or whatever. But someone like Jahara, though, for her to do cosplay the way that she's doing it, and for her to completely derail anybody who is objecting her is so commendable. Because here's a woman who tutors Japanese, who does these great cosplays, who has wonderful broadcasts, and every time just knocking it out of the park just because they know who they are.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an important part of what this is all about. You really need to understand, you really need to have a really good foundation of what you're all about in order to find some kind of success. But that comes with the gift of time.
Yes.
I have always told my students, give the gift of time. And whether or not you spend that time wisely is entirely up to you. I can't tell you how to spend your time because time is all we have. And time stops for no one. And whether we are able to absorb the calm of that time or whether we rush the time is entirely up to who we are. I always follow the have you ever heard of the 753 code?
No. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, so if I mention it you might know what I'm talking about. So the 753 code I have up here. It is the 7 principles of Bushido. the 5 keys to longevity, and the 3 Zen mind.
Okay.
So that's 753 code.
Mhm.
And my personal code is actually an acronym. It is FRIHL. That is my code. My personal code is the F, fortitude, the R is reliability, the I is integrity, the H is honor, and the L is love. So I adapted this off of this 753 code and also off of John Cena's hustle, loyalty, respect. So the 7 principles of Bushido, in short, are rectitude, or doing what is just without regard to consequence, courage, benevolence, politeness and propriety, honesty and sincerity, honor, and loyalty. Those are the 7 principles of Bushido. I have a whole book on it too.
Yeah.
The 5 keys to health, to good health and longevity are sensible exercise, rational nutrition, efficient rest, proper hygiene, and positive attitude, or positive behavior, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the 3 minds are the Zanshin, which is translated as the remaining spirit. It refers to this all-encompassing awareness. And then the Mushin, which is mind without mind, or the state of no mind. It's like a state of spontaneity. It kind of allows your immediate action without consciousness. And then there is the Fudo Shin, which is the immovable mind, which is a state that cannot be easily disturbed by confusion, anger, doubt, or fear. It is literally the calm in the center of the storm. That mental calmness, and not necessarily the skill, is the sign of a matured samurai, if you will.
Yeah.
So these kinds of codes push me forward. I feel like I get stuck trying so hard to overthink what I want to do next. Like your whole thing is like, what's next?
Welcome to my life.
I feel like I overthink what's next.
Yeah.
And that's the ADHD talking. But then I have to go into my other mantra: manage the mundane, recognize the impulses, keep track of your time, organize your stuff, minimize the distractions, move to stay calm, and then find the fire at the very end. You know, like you and I both connect on that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I suffer from martyr syndrome. And that it describes someone who is in a constant state of self-sacrifice.
Yes.
The reason I can't get this out is because I'm overthinking. Oh, is it worth it? Probably not. I'm just going to give up. And I am my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
I am my own worst enemy with between the ADD and the anxiety depression, which I have a workbook on, by the way, to work out, which is great. I'm glad I have it. All of that combined, I feel puts me in a position that I just need to stop thinking and just do.
Yes.
I have to. I just got to get it done in the way that I feel is going to be the most efficient for me. I have to shout out my friend again, Queen Dopamine, who I met over a year ago on this platform, and I still get to talk to. They don't broadcast anymore, but they're a pretty good writer. And I can consider them a good friend now. I had a really good conversation with them just about everything and nothing. And they've been trying for about a year to make a YouTube video about the video game Journey. Have you played this?
I haven't actually played the game. I watched it, and I meant to play it because I've always heard good things about it, but I've never actually gotten to play it myself.
Okay. I won't give away the store, but they've been trying to write this whole YouTube video and edit it for over a year. And I'm like, just don't rush it. Take your time, girl. You know, like when it feels right, because like Pharrell Williams once said, if you're trying to push the creativity and push the art, it's never good.
Yeah.
And he said, excuse me. And he said this, I don't know how familiar you are with Jay-Z's The Black Album.
I listened to it, but that was about the extent of it.
Okay. There's a track, excuse me, called Allure, right? And it's got these major seventh chords in it and everything, right? And Jay-Z said to Pharrell, I don't want you to take anything off of your truck. I want you to create something brand new for me right here on the spot. I don't care how long it takes. Just make a beat for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he makes the beat to Allure. And if anybody out there who's still watching wants to hear that song was made in mere hours, just based off of Pharrell trying to feel out what the essence of a Jay-Z song is.
Mm.
And he took his time. He literally took his time. And he was like, I've got some shit on the truck too. And he doesn't want me to take anything off that truck. He literally wants me to sit here and make something for him. And I'm going to do it. But I'm going to take my time. Because if it's rushed, it's never good.
Yeah.
And when you listen to this song, after hearing this story and you hear this song, the way that he describes how Jay rhymes over major seventh chords and how he transitions, Pharrell was thinking about all this stuff while making this song, while making this beat, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And he created one of my favorite I don't know if it's an essence of hip hop songs, but it's like it just feels that way. You know what I mean? Like it was made for the artist, for their benefit. And I feel like that's what I have to do for myself. I have to really make things for my own benefit. My friend is taking her time to make it for her own benefit. Whether it makes money or not is entirely up to the consumer. I'm not going to force that on them. I don't have a marketing team. I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
But I know in my heart of hearts that what I'm making will stand the test of time. Because nostalgia is timeless. And it's that euphoric recall that keeps us coming back for more. I want people to come back for more.
Yes.
And that's kind of where I want to leave it. In the sense of where my brand is at,
Absolutely. Well, see, that's the thing. And when you talk about martyr syndrome, see, that has been one of my bigger struggles out of this whole thing.
Same.
And in my case, the way it manifests is especially early on, the first 6 months of the year of streaming that I've had, it's been over a year now, but I was not going live because my friends were live, and I would rather have been a viewer for them than stream myself, because I wanted my friends to succeed more than I wanted to stream myself or succeed myself, because I didn't have the belief in myself. Now, I knew that even if I'm live at the same time as many of my friends and colleagues, we're not going to have the same viewers regardless. We're going to have different viewers. It was never about that, but in my mind, I thought my being live was taking up some of the oxygen that could be better served going to them, because I thought felt that they were more entertaining than I was. I felt that they had more value to offer to an audience than I did. And I had to reconcile in my own mind, which I still struggle with even now, that it's not the same audience. We might have some people who go back and forth. We share some viewers. That's common, especially when you look at Twitch as a community. It's different channels. Friends gravitate together. Well, mutual friends will jump back and forth between channels because, we're all connected. We rate each other. We're always talking about each other. So there's going to be crossover. But it's not about the crossover. We're not competing for the same viewers. We're live when we can be live. That's when we can go on.
Yeah.
And we can coexist. But in my mind, I would rather have been in my friends' channels watching them than streaming myself, because I thought they offered more value than I did. Because I didn't believe that I was entertaining enough to share the platform with them at that time. Like at that time slot.
Yeah.
So that's why when I did stream, it was very random, very little warning. It's because either I finally found the confidence or the mood to do it, or I just did it.
Right.
Now,
You just went for it. Yeah.
I just went for it. And now I'm working on setting a schedule that works for me rather than what all of my friends are doing or when they're on or when they're not on, or, it's now what works for me, what works for the kids, what works for my wife, what works for life, when I can give my best shows and when I'm available to actually broadcast. And that took over a year to figure out that I'm doing this for myself in a way that I can share with my audience and connect with people and deliver my content at a time that works for me. And I have to stop thinking about that impact on other people, because I will never be successful if I'm always worrying about everybody else.
Yeah. Wow, you nailed it. You nailed it right on the head, because I feel the same way. I feel like I'm everybody's biggest fan, and I'm not my own biggest fan.
Yeah.
I have to believe unconditionally in myself. And I don't. And I feel like that's one of the bigger struggles that I have. I need to really avoid escape mechanisms. That's really what I need to do. And I need to just buckle down and just do it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we as human beings have so much potential, and we just have to get out of our own way to unlock that potential. I feel like I'm too much in my own way. And also to kind of fold upon our similar way of thinking when it comes to the martyr syndrome. I think that we need to recognize that we have choices. We don't have to choose to just support other people. We can choose to support ourselves. Like, we have a choice in the matter. And whether we feel like that's morally degrading to support, or not, yes,
we have to accept that it's okay to actually motivate and support ourselves. That we're just as deserving as our friends are.
Right, and that is something that you and I think, need to get over that hurdle, because I need to get over that hurdle too, and I'm trying to find the time to get over that hurdle. But we'll get there. We just we have to just give the gift of time. Some people have been able to find success on this platform within the past year because they really stuck to it. Some people, like myself, are still trying to find where their brand fits in. My brand is very difficult. It's very difficult for me because it's not just my name. It's not like I'm calling myself. So my hip hop name was Germo Mac. It still is kind of, but like, it's not like I'm calling myself Germo the nostalgic guy. You know what I mean? It's not me. I'm literally trying to create something like a Disney. I'm creating a brand. You know what I mean? Like, that's a harder thing to nail down. So I kind of gave myself more work than I anticipated.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have it any other way, because I'm proud of what I've done so far, and I'm really glad with the direction I want to take this in, because down the road, it could be something big.
Yeah.
It could be, who knows, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying, but it's up to me to get out of my own way.
Yes.
And I just have to just do it. I just have to do it. And as much confidence as I exude, I'm being brutally honest, I'm petrified. I'm terrified. But I'm not terrified of pushing the live button. I'm not terrified of pushing the record button. I'm not terrified of the editing. I'm terrified of all the stuff that's going to come back. That's what I'm terrified of.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of all the
expectation of criticism that doesn't exist.
Yeah. And that
it's the expectation of failure.
When I got that first thumbs down on one of my YouTube videos, I was like, yes, I made it.
I have a YouTube video. It's a short, and it's got it's one of my bigger ones. It's got like a 1,100 views or something. Nothing amazing. No millions or anything. It's like 1,123 or something.
Okay.
And it's got more dislikes than likes. Right? Like, I think it's got like 8 dislikes and 2 likes. And that was something I actually needed. Because I looked at it and I'm like, okay. This didn't land well.
Right.
I'm still alive.
But our generation understands that. Like, we're able to take the brunt of that to a certain extent. You know what I mean?
But it has to happen.
Right. It has to. Right.
If it doesn't happen, that's what we're afraid of. We're afraid of it happening. Once it happens, we can accept it.
Right.
It's the fear of it happening that was the problem.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now I've got this YouTube short that has a 20% like ratio, which I absolutely adore. And I think it's the funniest thing in the fucking world.
I think it's great.
It's one of my favorite ones, right? It's like a 15-second clip from me playing No Man's Sky. And I just let loose a quip because the game sets up and it asks if I like the world that was created by the Atlas or whatever it was. And I'm like, oh yes, Atlas Daddy. And, I just shot it off. And I think it's fucking hilarious. But apparently the internet doesn't agree.
Right.
And I love it because, and this is a recent thing, which is why I'm now in this process of evolution I'm going through, because I finally had that dud drop.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that I always noticed was off stream, out with the kids or with the wife or with friends or whatever, I'm always cracking jokes and making people laugh and being goofy and, just being my stupid self. Everybody's laughing and telling me, oh, you're fantastic, blah, 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 blah. You hear for years, oh my God, you're so funny. You should have your own show, blah, 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 right? But when I'm on stream, I didn't recognize that I was doing my natural thing anyway. And being that stupid, goofy self, I kept thinking, why can't I be this funny when I'm on stream? I've realized that I'm doing the things. I just looking it through the filter of, this is my negativity. People are laughing at the things, people are giving me good feedback saying, oh my God, that was so funny. But I'm not seeing it myself on stream.
Yeah.
Because I expected failure. But I didn't have the failure come yet. Now that I've had that moment, I'm more open to the jackassery that I normally would do anyway. And I just had to get to that point.
I need to get thicker skin. That's what I need to do. I need to get thicker skin. I need to just be able to say, okay, someone called me a racist American on one of my broadcasts, and I just kind of deleted it. And then they were like, you can't silence me from the truth. Look at what you're wearing or this or that. And I was just like, okay, you're banned, without giving them a second thought. But it still hit me to this day, like someone would just come and make that kind of assumption. And it still affects me. And I'm like, if that affects me still, I don't have thick skin yet. I really got to have thicker skin for this. Well, so I feel like if I grow that, will I be able to take more risks?
I have a thought about that. It's not skin is not getting a thicker skin. I had a moment. I used to I had a negative comment on a TikTok ticky-tacky thingy. Boom. Somebody said that my head looked like a jar of Vaseline or something. I didn't understand the insult whatsoever. I just deleted it. Right? Yeah. And it annoyed the hell out of me because, for starters, it made no grammatical sense. But, it just sat with me for like a week. And then somebody else made another negative comment, and I said, thank you.
Right.
And it's just like, I realized that the value of that comment was less than zero. There was no value in their comment. There was no value in their criticism. It wasn't criticism. It was just a naked insult. They were just being insulting because whatever is going on with their life, they, get their rocks off by insulting people on the internet. I just said, thank you. And I let it go. And it wasn't that I needed to get thicker skin or tougher to deal with the negativity. It was the fact that I had to recognize that was exactly what it was. Meaningless pixels that I just had to accept and let it pass through me.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find a way to not let it affect me in the long run. Because if that thing happened in February, I'm still affected. There's something going on. You know what I mean? Like I need to just like get over it. You know.
Well, like if you know Dune, you know the mantra against fear, right?
Yes.
Right? Fear is the mind killer. Switch out fear and make it insults or negativity or toxicity.
Okay.
Toxicity is the mind killer. Let it pass through you and over you. And where it is gone, there is only nothing, only you remain. You just have to let that toxicity just pass through you. And that's very difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult.
But it's assigning weight to things. You know, it's always about assigning value.
Weight. Yeah.
Right? You want your performances, you want your content to give value to your viewers. You want to give something out to the universe that somebody finds valuable and enjoys, whether it's for entertainment or they find it insightful, interesting, or they learn something from it, right? There's value in content. There's no value in toxic, negative comments. So in your mind, you have to assign that negative, give it no weight, and things with no weight just pass away.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle that I've had my entire life that I've only started to come to grips with.
Yeah, I think I need to get to that point. I will. I feel like I will. I have the I have the capacity to do so. So I think it's just a matter of me.
That's the first step.
Right. I think it's just me being able to like say, okay, well, or just like you said with the value. What is the value of this? If it's got no value, then it's not really worth my time. Because if my time is valuable, then it's not worth my time to see what value is worth.
Your time has more value than that person's seconds they took to spew that toxicity. They wasted their time.
Yeah, that's true.
Not yours. Don't waste your time worrying about the toxic nature of other people. Your time's more valuable than that. You're more valuable than that.
I like to think I offer value. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, here's the thing. I am so thankful and so grateful for this past year and a half. I never thought in a million years, and I should have done it a decade earlier. I should have gotten broadcast stuff earlier, right? Tell me about it. But I digress. I'm so thankful for all the people that I've met. I've made friends here, friends who I have met in real life. Friends who I am planning on meeting. It's just incredible how you and I have grown up in a world where you're not supposed to meet strangers on the internet. To being able to find people who have such similar interests, and it's just mind-boggling how grateful I am that I decided that I would use what I trained for and transfer it to the online space like this. I'm really grateful and I'm so thankful. I don't know how to wrap up, but I mean, I'm just I guess some final thoughts from this evening. We've spoken about a lot of really cool stuff. We've delved into a lot of great deep conversations. I think we hit on a lot of good points. I think we had some fun. I would love to do this again. I would love to collaborate with you and Matt on your project if it ever comes to fruition.
And absolutely.
I can't thank you enough. I'm very honored. I'm very humbled again to be part of this. I'm always humbled whenever I'm invited or asked to come on to something like this because I always feel like I'm just a schmo who's had tons of training that didn't go anywhere, that I'm just kind of like digging my feet into like new waters. But in a young person's game, mind you.
Yeah.
But I am I'm very grateful for you, Angelus, for just being who you are and just inviting me onto this. And I'm really glad we had this conversation, and I'm so glad that we've had people to chat back with us and comment, and I'm very grateful. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Well, I it's been my absolute pleasure. And that's the thing, like, with doing these, I want to have conversations with people with different backgrounds, different training. And, your training is very specific to the entertainment world, and it does translate well to this online space. Well, not necessarily well, because it's a different atmosphere, but a lot of those skills are transferable. So,
Right.
And that's the interesting thing about this, is that a lot of people come from very different backgrounds, different skill sets, but we're all finding the same kind of experience in learning how to do the streaming thing. And that's why I like doing these podcasts and having these conversations and doing it in a way that's not structured, because you learn more and you experience more by experiencing the conversation together. So I am very thankful that you agreed to come on, and it has been a delightful 3.5 hours covering all sorts of things. This is what I live for. Like, I need to do more of these because these make my day. So we're going to find somebody to raid.
I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you so much. This is wonderful.
And as is tradition for the podcast, we're going to raid somebody who will never notice us. And just because it's my own personal amusement, we are going to raid T-Pain.
No kidding. I love it. All right. Sounds great.
So, right. And to keep the flavor of public access, these shows are made possible by supporters like viewers like you.
Thank you.
So yes, and if you haven't already, check out It's Nostalgic Magic, my very good friend who has joined me this evening, because honestly, you're missing out. If you haven't already, you need to.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to go to Japan. I need to go to Japan.
And there's the shout out. All right.
Awesome.
We're off. We're going to go see T-Pain. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. What key is that? That was awesome. What key is that?
There we go. We rated T-Pain.
That was great. There's T-Pain. We rated T-Pain. He's just jamming. This is great.
I know, right?
I love it.